Hello, just wanted to welcome everyone to the second conference call here for the members of Justice for David Crowley and Family. And really this is a members-only conference call. We're going to get people in here that are already members of the page, and that would be the best. And if everyone could mute their connection, and then be sure to click to unmute when you're chatting. But if we can keep everyone muted when you're not talking, that'll help clear up the background chat. The purpose of the group, this page was started. I started this page back in January 19th, 2015, just 2 days after the bodies were discovered. And the purpose is to look for justice for David Crowley and his family. And what that means is that the purpose is not here to do a full investigation to find out who did it and who pulled the trigger and who was the bad guy here, but to look for justice, rather, justice for the family. And that means David and Kamel and Ranny. Those are the three that we're looking for justice for. This is not a page for the Crowley extended family. This is not for the Alam family. This is not for the cousins, friends, and relatives. It's mainly looking for the justice for those three. So if you're on this page and you're a member of the group, it's understood that you don't believe that David Crowley did this. We can certainly talk about theories and whatnot, but the purpose is really that we don't think that there's evidence to support David did this at all. Who did it could be irrelevant at this point, but just to try to get this case reopened or reinvestigated or not. But there's a lot of theories out there, but with anything there's tons of theories, and we don't necessarily want to waste our time with what our theories are necessarily, but we try to say, like Greg says, focus on the facts. Tonight's call is going to be just basically topics, I think, covered on that. Greg, you made a post, and everyone kind of just filtered in and dropped in some ideas for topics, so I think what I'll do is jump on that page and just go down that list. I've got nothing myself that I've got as far as a plan. I plan on being on the call for up to, for no longer than 2 hours, if you certainly want to stay on longer than last one went 5 hours, but I'll be jumping off after that point. Greg can terminate the call whenever he'd like after that point. But that is really it. I want to welcome everyone. First of all, we've had an interesting week and whatnot, but this has been essentially becoming a part-time job for the. We've got 3 admins on the page. Greg is one of them, Greg Fernandez Jr., and then Louise Gibson. And then myself. There's 3 of us handling all of the new members and all of the comments and all the posts, while at the same time we are busy with YouTube broadcasts and Twitter activity and also there's that other page too, the Justice for David Crowley of Gray State. So there is lots going on, but I think we can open it up to start. Greg, do you have anything you want to start off with first of all?
No, not really. No, I'm just kind of leaving it open. I think a lot of people are very curious about the Sidris friend. I'm seeing a lot of talk about that, and I think we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves until you've actually spoken with her, gotten your questions, so that we can get our feedback on that.
In fact, I'll be. The interview that I'm going to publish tomorrow with her will cover a lot of those things, and I've got a list of questions there for her, and we don't want to spend too much time on her tonight, although I have seen on the page today that there's a lot of, yesterday and today, a lot of talk, what is her name, Natasha, she is going to be very valuable, I believe, on getting the aspect and the perspective from the Alam family down in Texas, and Sidra being the sister, and this Natasha being the best friend of Sidra. Now, because Natasha is the best friend of the victim's sister, I'm not interested in hearing any theories from Natasha's standpoint of who did it or who did it or why, or if David did it or not. That, I think we've got some good information on that on the page. But I think the benefit of her on this interview that I'm going to do tomorrow with her is relating to how the Alams are dealing with all of this, their thoughts, the father's information, and the information they had learned from getting the information back and the belongings back from Kamel and things like that. But I don't want to go too far as her theories. That her theories really don't. I'm not interested in hearing, in particular, her theories on if David did it or not. I don't think that's going to hold up too much, although she has seen some information. The information that I think is going to be most worthwhile from her on that interview tomorrow is really the contents on the Surface Pro that was returned back to the Alam family in Texas. The Surface Pro was that computer laptop folded up against the sofa in the room where the killings took place. And police, remember the police returned that piece of evidence back to the Alams, stating they were unable to get access to that and unable to get onto that machine because they didn't know the password. So that's the biggest point there, is that the revelation recently is that Sidra was able to get in now recently by, I don't know what she did, but she's able to get in and allegedly access that computer and see some journals, some notes that Comel took about her thoughts and feelings and emotions and things like that. But that is really it. We'll get more into that tomorrow on that interview. I'll post some of that stuff. So that we don't have to touch on too much tonight. Greg, you do want me to read off that PDF about the page 17, and I can start off. Really, we could start off with that and then take it where it leads us here tonight on this discussion. On January 20th, 2015. Now this is they're talking about Special Agent Eilers. That's what SA stands for, Special Agent. This is with the BCA, and the 20th would have been the Tuesday. The Tuesday of the following week. Bodies were found on Saturday the 17th. Cleaners were there. Investigators cleaned up on Sunday and wrapped up on Sunday the 18th. 19th, the cleaners came, and then now this is the 20th. Eilers received a request from the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension crime scene team leader, Joe Cooksley, regarding digital images taken at the scene in Apple Valley. Eilers was requested to submit the raw digital images of the bloody latent prints that were found on a laptop that was located in the kitchen area of the residence. Special Agent Eilers copied these images onto a compact disc, resulting in the acquisition of item 1-1.1. Special Agent Eilers was also requested to submit the raw digital images taken of the bloody handwriting on the wall in the living room area of the residence. Special Agent Eilers copies these images onto a compact disc, resulting in the acquisition of item 1.2. Special Agent Eilers was also asked to submit the raw digital images taken of the blood footprints that were located on the wood floor near the kitchen island in the kitchen area of the residence. Special Agent Eilers copied these images onto a compact disc, resulting in the acquisition of items 1.3. And then, last of all, Special Agent Eilers submitted all three of these things to the BCA lab evidence intake at BCA headquarters in St. Paul. S.A. Eilers was given a receipt for the evidence submission, and his receipt is attached to his report.
Okay, so I think one of the reasons why I just wanted to kind of bring this up is there's been some questions about the whole blood, like where was their blood, whose blood is it, whose fingerprints are there, what fingerprints do they actually have. Having gone through this 485-page document and looking at some of the other documents, the 40-page BCA document, I think what they have maybe one or two fingerprints that they can tie to David, and that's really it.
Correct. Yeah, there was fingerprints and analysis done all over the home and the crime scene, but there was really only, I think, there's 2 or 3, was it 3 matches of the entire crime scene that tied anything back.
These latent prints are a huge, huge thing, because when we asked Detective Gummert if there weren't any latent prints on that blood wall, he said no. But we're hearing other people say something different. So,
and just to clarify too, for the new folks out there, that a crime of this magnitude, you would have especially as a murder-suicide, the fingerprints would be on the weapon, itself. Now, David owned that weapon. His fingerprint should be all over that weapon. But there's not a single latent print of David Crowley, either left or right hand, on that XD Springfield 40 caliber weapon. There is a fingerprint on the magazine. There's a fingerprint on the magazine, which I don't know if that relates to anything. I don't want to be crass, but obviously his fingerprints would be all over that all the magazines and all the weapons that are in his name anyway. So there was evidence of the fingerprint on the magazine, none on the gun, none on the wall, one fingerprint of his left middle finger on the piece of paper on the steno pad in the office, and I believe a fingerprint on the laptop, which is also David's. There would be fingerprints all over his laptop. Now, the laptop and the steno pad, it was a bloody fingerprint. So David's fingerprint is on the middle finger only on that notepad, and then one of the fingers on the laptop, and then a fingerprint on the magazine of the gun. There's also, I think that was it. Those are the three things that really tie him to the scene. Doesn't tie him to the crime, but it ties him to the scene itself. And so, Greg, you're right in saying that, you know, when people ask for evidence for a slam dunk case, yes, when officers arrived, it did appear that if this was a murder-suicide, it certainly looked like David probably did it, but there's no evidence. There's no evidence to support that. So, go ahead. I just wanted to interject that.
No, that's basically it. Why do you think there was so little blood everywhere? I think that's been a big thing that has been brought up too. Shouldn't there be more blood, or is that normal? I've seen that question asked a lot recently, and usually new people who come to the scene and come to the page ask that right away and say, "Where's all the blood?" Now, I think people are thinking, I believe that rug in that living room area was a thin, lightweight rug, but that was a heavy, thick rug, and I think it absorbed a lot of blood. Now, people are asking, why didn't it go soak through onto the floor and through the floorboards and everything else? But and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone out there. I'll jump on mute here in a few minutes. But once you're shot at close range with a high impact velocity gunshot like that, you are dead. You are killed instantly. Your heart stops pumping. So there wouldn't be that much blood. Correct me if I'm wrong. There would be, there would be blood, but it's not like the bodies were bled out. And so all three were killed instantly with gunshots to the head, so there wouldn't be that much blood on the floor anyway. And I think the one of the blood on the floor would have been absorbed over the 3 weeks into that rug anyway. Now, the blood spatter with a hollow point .40 caliber Smith & Wesson bullet, it's going to cause a lot of damage on the walls and on the ceiling and on the floor, and we did see that in the pictures. I do think that there's blood spatter and high velocity blood spatter on the floor and the furniture, the carpeting, and everything else. So for me, looking at this case for 3 years, and like I said, I'm no expert. I could be certainly wrong, but the blood is not a big impact for me. It's the other things that jump out for me. The other thing I hear a lot of is the blood dog footprints. Now, when the 3 bodies were killed in that time frame, I'm of the belief the dog obviously ran downstairs with the gunshot noise and was out of the way. Yeah, and it may have taken him a couple hours to come back up. And the blood, I think, that the thickness of the blood would have started to dry already at that point. And a couple hours later, the dog wouldn't have been feeding on the bodies at this point until he would have gotten hungry, which could have been several days later. So I don't think he would have been, stepping through this blood, but if he did, there would have been light footprints of the dog, I think, on the carpeting as well. But dogs tend to clean themselves around their face, after they would have been eating on the bodies and their paws anyway. So the lack of footprints for the dogs isn't that big of a thing for me. A lot of people I know that it is a big thing. For me, the other thing that jumps out is if David was barefoot and was walking around the house, to me the thing that jumps out is the lack of footprints by
David or whoever those footprints are. It's strange that there's just a footprint or two near the kitchen island, and there's no footprint, leading to that island or leading away from the island. There's just some random footprints there at the island. That to me causes more of a concern. But I'll open it up here. I will jump on mute, and I know we've got some people looking to ask some questions here, and I will jump on that Facebook page and see what the next ideas or questions are coming up. But I'd like to have the others, and please welcome, jump on in and introduce yourself. I don't know what the best way to go is, Greg, but whoever has questions or comments, jump in and we'll take turns. And if you're not on live speaking, just please mute yourself. I'm going to jump off now.
All right. Who wants to go ahead and talk? We can have a dialogue. People can talk back and forth. It's fine. Just, let's make sure everybody gets a chance to say what they want to say. Any takers? I know you're out there.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go for it. Who is it?
Okay. This is Diane.
Hi, Diane.
And I live in Oakdale, Minnesota. And
okay.
My question is, so if something is found that possibly proves that somebody else did it, how is this going to be? How is a new case going to get reopened? What's the procedure? I mean, if we come across or find evidence that something else, what are we going to do with that? Are somebody going to go to the police and say, okay, this is what we found, we think you should reopen this case? How does that all work? Do you guys know?
That's what I would do. Dan, I know a couple other people have mentioned there's certain things we can do.
Yeah, I think you would, from a police law enforcement standpoint, I think if they were to reopen a case, they would need some huge piece of evidence that would be earth-shattering, and then they would bring it available to bring it open and reopen the case. And I believe Apple Valley law enforcement it would be in their ballpark to do this. Now, the criticism they faced and the documentary and the pages that we've got on Facebook here have got those guys so backed into a corner that I don't believe they will ever reopen this case on their own doing. Just because there'd be so much admission of guilt and admission of, kind of like the Kurt Cobain case was so bad, bungled up in Seattle, Washington, that they have brought forth huge evidence to reopen that case because it was physical evidence overwhelming that Kurt Cobain did not kill himself in that house. But because they're so embarrassed, so ashamed to admit that they failed, they're never going to reopen that Cobain case. Now, I think that's the same case here, that they will never. Now, one option, if we were to get, I think there's two options that we have as a group or as outsiders looking in, is if a private investigator or a private team was hired and comes up with it from a legal or a law firm standpoint and presented a case to law enforcement, I think it would force their hand to look at it and possibly reopen it. Or if the state attorney general or someone higher up, the county attorney or something, would reopen it, then I think that would force Apple Valley to reopen the case. But in my belief, the Apple Valley the police department themselves will never, ever, ever reopen this case. That's my personal belief. But I think there are ways to get something like that done.
What about through the family?
Families, I think, would be the heavy hitters to reopen a case. In this case, the families are not interested in doing that. As far as I know, the Crowleys certainly aren't. They've went so far as to take part in a documentary that proves David is guilty. So they're not going to push to reopen the case. They're already more than happy to throw David under the bus, to saying that their own son and sibling did this. So that's not going to come from their end, and the Alams, I don't believe, are going to do anything to reopen the case either, because they are at peace with the version of David did it. There'd be nothing to reopen, nothing to benefit to them by reopening this case. So I think it would have to come from third-party folks like us, investigators. other people in law enforcement to do that.
Is it possible that there is some smoking gun or something that the family knows about, or one of the families knows about, or both of the family knows about that everybody else doesn't know about, that maybe there was a suicide note, or there was something that wasn't publicly, wasn't available to the public, that they are so certain that this is what happened? Because I would, if so many people out here question it, something like this, why wouldn't they question it? Why would you be so certain, that this is what, that was what happened, that he committed suicide? And if you see that so many other people are questioning it, wouldn't you just be like, well, what if? It just blows my mind that they don't want to further investigate this.
Well, I agree with you, Donna. I'm exactly the same way, and I think most people in the general public are. If a crime of this caliber happened in their family, they'd want to go to all extents, all resources, and anything they could to make sure they had closure.
Mm-hmm.
The strange thing with this case is that both families essentially are complacent with it and want to move on, and there has been no smoking gun. Now, if there was something like that, I think police, news, media, something would say, okay, here's the answer. We finally got this case solved. Here is the suicide note signed by David with the date and the reason why he did this. That's not something that a family can say, you know what, we don't want that released. I don't think they've got the authorization to say we don't want that released. Families can come up to for the records department for FOIA requests and say we don't want certain things released as part of FOIA because of gruesome photographs or inappropriate images or documents or something like that. A suicide note or something that explains what happened is none of those things. That would not be something that they would want to hide. But from the very beginning, what we've heard from the family was, we know what happened, and once you know what happened, you'll agree. And Greg and I have been asking, what do you know? What is it that happened? Well, they said there's this suicide note. It's typed up on WordPad that says, I loved you all with all my heart. Well, we're like, next, that doesn't do anything for it. Well, he signed something on the notepad, submit to Allah now. Well, that's not a suicide note, so what makes you think that he did it? Well, wait till the documentary comes out was the next thing. When the documentary comes out, Judy Prochnow and everybody said, once that comes out, you'll all have your answers. And we've seen the video. We've seen the documentary. There's nothing in the documentary that says David did it. So they keep saying it's so obvious he did it. Once you see the documentary, it's so obvious you'll know he did it. Well, we saw video footage of a crazy psycho person. Wow, that's great. That doesn't show me that he committed the crimes of killing these 3 people. So that to me is not the video footage of him or showing any evidence of what he did. With all that terabytes of hours and hours and hundreds of hours of video, there's probably 20 minutes Eric Nelson could have gathered together of David Crowley on the toilet that he could have put together in a movie. I mean, David Crowley had that video footage running all day long, every day. So there was probably footage of him dropping off and taking the daughter to school and cooking meals and vacuuming the house and changing the light bulb and reconciling his bank statement. Who knows what was all. So what we saw in the documentary was cherry-picked footage of David Crowley looking like a lunatic. So that of course, if you take anyone's footage of hundreds of hours and you come up with those, dozen or so video images of the footage is all we saw in the documentary, that's a very small fragment of all what those video footage contained. So I don't see any smoking gun. I don't see anything that says David Crowley did this. But for me, it's the gunshots. If a silencer was used, why did he use a silencer to kill himself? If he didn't use a silencer, there's no way that neighborhood would not have woken up. So we've already got a problem from the beginning with the noise. Even if he did do it, how come no one heard those killings? And how come whoever did it? I think the obvious thing for me and is the timing of the staging of the events. It was not a quick in and out. Whoever was there had time to do all of this stuff, I'll call it, and not be concerned that someone was going to be coming knocking on the door and looking in the window. There was no concern. It appeared that whoever did this took their time, and so they were, the least of their concern was worrying about being interrupted or being noticed, I think. And so if David did it without a silencer, there would have been someone at that window knocking on the door saying, "What's going on?" 2 minutes later. But so that's where I get where it doesn't make sense. Did it portray David as a psycho? Was he narcissistic? Sure. Did Kamel have paranormal activity? Potentially. Those don't cause you to kill. Did they smoke weed? Yes. It doesn't make you a triple homicide killer by using weed or drinking absinthe. So we've got, and like Greg has said many times, if you stick to the facts will lead us down the road. You can use conjecture all you want to come up with what you think may have happened, but I think we're set to go on to the next question. If anyone else can add on to that as well.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, can hear you. Go for it.
Tracy.
Hey, Tracy.
Speaking of his portrayal, the one thing in that documentary that bothered me is that where they show him, the daughter's crying downstairs, and he opens up the door and just peeks in. I don't know why they picked the certain images they did. I know why the documentary people did it, but why the father left, like you said, all the footage that they could have picked, they picked those horrible, vicious things to make him. Even if your son was like that, would you want the world to see that part of him when we hear other people saying so much great things about him and you see him interact with the way he was with children? I don't understand why, as a parent, you would want your child, portrayed in that light. That whole part about him when he opened up the door and the daughter in the basement and she was having a tantrum. That was probably just he was letting her have.
Recording started.
Yeah, I get your point, Tracy. That's a good question. There's two, and I think for those listening, there's two questions here that Tracy's touching on. Number one is, why did David film that? And number two is, why did Eric Nelson, trying to trim down as much as he can to fit into a 90-minute documentary, decide to say, I'm going to pick that footage to put into my movie? Now, David filming it, I think we have the answer for that. He filmed everything. Everything he did during the day was filmed or on film or captured, or he just filmed a lot of stuff. I don't know why he filmed that, but I'm not in his head. I'm not sure why he filmed a lot of the other stuff that he filmed. I do think.
No, I don't mean. I'm talking about David Sr., the father. Obviously, before this came out, you have had to have looked at it and seen what they were going to put out before they put it out.
Well, that's a very good point. And
you were okay with that?
Well, here's a good point, Tracy, and I fully agree too. Greg and I were in that and did some interviews and appeared for a little bit in the documentary. And I've never seen a rough cut. I was never sent a link to say, here's how the film looks, what are your thoughts? But we know that the Alam family did, which means, like your point, that Dan Crowley Sr. also received it and says, yep, I'm good with it, it looks good to me. How on earth,
right,
when you get a film like that in a rough cut, is Dan Crowley Sr. not on the phone 2 minutes later saying, Eric Nelson, what the hell are you thinking? What kind of film is this?
Right, because that's why our father backed out.
Yep, and that's why the Alam backed out, because they saw that it was propaganda. So that's a very good question. Why on earth did Dan Crowley Sr. allow Eric Nelson to say, sounds good, I'll give you the green light, move forward please with the documentary, after seeing that and him talking about death with the babies at the table there, and all the
Yeah.
scenes of the
The
hallucinations.
creepiest
all
part,
this.
like, and I'm sure it was severely edited. Like there was a conversation before that, or there was something that went on. She could have had been attention tantrum over a piece of candy, and they cut that out. They made it look so bad. You know what I mean?
Correct. Yeah, we
As
don't know
a parent, it gets me mad that they let that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Even my brother, I would never let my brother. You know, even if he did commit suicide, I wouldn't let you guys see that ever.
Correct.
And
Greg, what's your thought on that? Well, he might be on mute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was talking to myself.
Hey, did you hear that question, Greg? Yeah, obviously you did hear it. Well, go ahead and answer now.
Yeah, what was that last one? Was it?
The last question was what Tracy brought up was not the fact that David was filming it, not the fact that Eric Nelson put it in the film, but how on earth could Dan Crowley Sr. as a father watch the rough cut and say, yep, it looks good, Eric Nelson, please move forward and keep this video footage of my psycho son on the big screen so everyone can see it. Why didn't he call and say, I also don't want to be part of this, or please halt the production, or, you know, he obviously went along with it. He was there signing, you know, at the screening and involved with the premiere. I mean, this was, as a father, this is what Tracy's trying to get at is, as a father, how can you allow that to happen, portraying your son that way?
Well, honestly, I don't think that movie gets made if it doesn't have Dan Crowley Sr. in it. So I think he's a big part of that film and a part of that whole project. I don't know if he's being misled. I can speculate on who would be doing that to him, who's feeding him stuff. But from what I've heard from certain people, Dan Crowley Sr. is a nice guy, just a regular guy, blah, 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 all this. And so it's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, obviously the guy has to watch this and think, okay, yeah. So I can only echo
like he comes off as a real heartless son of a bitch. Excuse my French, but in that documentary he shows no remorse, nothing.
I didn't get that. Like,
yeah.
So tell me why you think that.
I don't know. He just struck me as an arrogant man who he had no emotion to him, and maybe that's kind of the way I see David too. Because I mean, they're strong, tough military guys, you know. Maybe that's what it was. And through the brother, I seen fake emotion, but that could just be me. But I want to jump off so somebody else has a question, just really quick before I get off. I'm going to stay on, but speaking about the Kurt Cobain, that guy, if you watch that documentary, that's the type of guy you want, because he has no fear going into, I mean, if you've seen, he did Biggie and Tupac, he went right into Compton and was talking to, like, drug dealers. He didn't care. Like, that's the kind of guy we need to go in that'll, you know, storm through all these places. And, you know, but one thing, like, we need somebody like that, I think, if we were going to do something. But we need somebody that's not going to have any fear at asking these questions. I just wouldn't want them to bother, especially our family going through the situation. And he don't have no boundaries. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, there's somebody out there.
Emotionless. He's very emotionless.
Yeah, I kind of saw him more as. Go ahead.
Thanks for the question. And the individual's name that she was talking to in the Cobain case is Private Investigator Tom Grant. He was a former LAPD officer and then went and did private investigations. And he's a no-nonsense type of a guy. And even if someone of his caliber, they're really not listening to him in Seattle to reopen that case. But to get someone like that in this case, I think would be awesome. And if someone's listening right now, or someone knows someone like that, that would be excellent. The other comment to go back to on why did Dan Sr. allow this footage to be made into the big screen? Ask yourself this: if Kate Crowley was still alive, would she allow this movie to move forward? Let that sink in for a minute. I don't think so. I think she would be flying to L.A. to strangle Eric Nelson if she got her hands on that guy. That's what I think. So yes, Tracy, your comment is very, I think, impactful. The fact that a father, Dan Crowley Sr., not only allowed this to happen, but actually is promoting this film with his own very own son being thrown under the bus as a psychopathic
And
killer.
where was the daughter? Where was the sister? She had a lot to say in emails, but she didn't appear in that at all. That if it was my brother, I'd be on there. I'd be on there.
Now, would you be on there if you disagreed with the content of it too? Because maybe that's why she's not on there. Maybe she didn't want to be on there because she didn't.
No,
like
I would be on there like you two are on there disagreeing.
Yeah.
I'd be on there sitting next to one of you two and be like, I'm more with these guys. I don't. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I guess
they probably would have
reason why his mother's not on there.
Yeah.
She probably was. We don't know. You know.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. I would just say, just finishing up about Dan Crowley Sr. To me, he looks like a computer programmer. He has that glossy-eyed look of just someone who is very well detached from a lot of these things, and I just kind of got that feeling that the reason why to me he felt just like numb, like he didn't even really want to be there. Which also makes it even weirder. It's like, well, okay, you could have stopped this whole this whole thing. There, like, I don't believe there is any movie without him, without his family, without the whole Gray State team. I think this is their project. I think they were pushing hard for this, and they've made money off of it. They've sold footage. They've sold stock footage. They've played a lot of weird games. They've out and out lied. These are not honest people.
What they did to the two mics was terrible.
That was ridiculous. Yeah.
That was terrible. I felt so bad for those two guys. That's why I think they would be on board to retaliate. To be like, yeah, you want to make me look like an asshole? Now I'm going to make you look like a greedy, money-hungry killer that had something to do with this. Sorry.
All right. Let's see. Who else we got here? Anybody else want to jump in? Should we go to our next topic?
I don't know if I can
somebody.
Go ahead. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
So, Dan, I know I had touched base with you at one point about. Actually, no, it was Greg. I talked to Greg about Natasha Caprivi. And I know you have that interview with her tomorrow. And I just kind of wanted to get like your point of view on like how this is gonna sound completely so rude, but how like trustworthy you think her word is on like whether or not she did know Kamel and her family, etc.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll touch on it briefly. Like I said, I'm going to be interviewing tomorrow and putting that out, so I don't want to spend too much time. But I think her as a person, I do believe she's trustworthy, and she sounds a lot like when I converse with Sidra. And so, but once again, everything that these guys are saying is basically secondhand information. All we can get from them is firsthand what they've dealt with and what they've seen and what they know. And I think she's a good. I think Natasha's a good reference as far as getting information from the Alam side of the family. That's neutral information. I would rather not have her commenting on David's journals and what and thinking that David did it. I don't think that's her place to do that. And if she's here to do that, then that is. We don't need her trolling the page for that. But the family kind of stuff is good. And what I got from her the other day was very helpful information on piecing things together from the history. And her father is Italian and her mother's Pakistani. And so they, coming from Pakistan, they became friends really close, and I think that's what helped them bond so well, them with the family. And then she was also very close to Kamel, and she treated, she thought of Kamel as an older sister of hers. So I think with anyone in this case, you take the information with a grain of salt. I like to, use the concept of trust, but verify. Trust things that you hear, but also verify it too. Don't take anything at face value. But when I get the rest of the information from her, I'll be posting that when I get the information out there tomorrow. Thanks for the question. This is Taylor, right?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you. All right. Who we've got next?
Dan, this is Sophia.
Hi, Sophia.
I have a question. How are you?
Good.
I have a question in regards to some of the lab results.
I'm sorry?
Some of the lab results. Here, let me take myself off the speaker. I have a question in regards to some of the lab results.
Oh, lab
For
results.
instance, especially the ones that were just received just a couple weeks ago. It shows on some of the DNA reports that it had like 2 different DNA profiles, but then it ruled out 2 of the 3 victims. And so I was rather confused in regards to that because, in my opinion, as I was reading it, it showed that another person was in that home and was part of the DNA that was tested. And I believe that the DNA that was tested were blood DNA results.
Yeah, I think that was confusing to a lot of folks as well. That's not really my area either. It is confusing, but you're coming at it from a good angle, Sophia, and some other people have mentioned it as well. When you read the lab results, and it clearly shows whose DNA things were or whose they were not, that sometimes who it was not helps lead you better to the better answer of more details. And when you start eliminating David and Kamel on some of this DNA, the question remains then, you're backing into whose is it then? And so I think that's a quality question. I can't talk to that too much because that is up and over my head, but I know some folks were commenting on that with more of a background in forensics and could probably better help that. But I do agree with your concept. It's hard for me to get my head around that, though, unless there's other people on the line who can talk to that a little more. The one thing I noticed from the lab results that just came back that I found surprising, and in fact I think it's probably the only thing that I don't believe of the lab results. The saying that they matched that Springfield XD 40 caliber gun to the actual bullets that were fired that day matched exactly to David's gun. Now I don't buy that. That's my opinion. But I think in order to do that, you're still having to do Lands and Grooves testing on the bullet fragments to match it up with a Lands and Grooves test done on a bullet recently fired from the exact same handgun to make sure it matches up with a microscope. I cannot believe that test was done because I don't believe that bullets were fired from that gun at all. I'm still of the belief that David's gun was never fired that day. It was just laid down next to his left hand. But everything else, because it's done in a lab setting, it would have to be correct, and it would have to be true, and it would have to be authentic, unless we're dealing with a cover-up. Now, we still haven't ruled that out. And so, in the case of a cover-up, whether it's a Las Vegas shooter or the recent shooting in Florida, where we've already seen things bungled up and things covered up at the police level and the law enforcement level, who's to say that didn't take place here? We still don't know. But is there anyone else on the call that can talk to that the DNA, the nuclear DNA test results, and we can cover that as well. I just don't think I can add much value to that conversation.
Well, even with the DNA results, it was showing that Kamel's blood and her DNA were on the bullets and for instance, like on the gun and the gun safe. And so I'm trying to even put that together. It's like, why would her blood be on the gun safe if the gun was used to commit the murders?
Yeah, and I think too if you take you off your investigator hat and just use if you put on the common sense, you know that someone looking at the crime scene that it's pretty good bet that gun safe was opened afterwards. I don't think it was done first to use that gun to carry out the killings. I think it was opened up afterwards to access the gun. Now, why was her blood on there in the bedroom at that safe? You know, all of them could have been killed already at that point. When
I have to agree.
did it. And I don't know what the hands missing and whatnot. I'm of the belief that I think the parts missing off the bodies was done later by the dog, but I don't know. I do think that gun safe was opened later or last to get access to the gun to simply lay it there. I don't think that gun was used in the murders at all. That's once again my opinion, but I do think a silencer was obviously used, or a suppressor on that weapon, because, like I said earlier, whoever did it had free time to do whatever they wanted in that house without being noticed, disturbed, or interrupted. That's, I think, the biggest red flag of this whole case, that along with the sliding rear slider. Those two things probably alone would be enough to have reasonable doubt. If David Crowley was on the stand in a court case, this case would be thrown out. I mean, there would be reasonable doubt would be right off the first 5 minutes of the case. You'd have enough reasonable doubt that you couldn't charge him with this crime. So, like Greg says, how can police come up with this in 24 or 48 hours so soon, when we know that if this thing was brought to a case, a jury case, court case, charging David Crowley, he'd be off and walking free as a free man 5 minutes later. There's so much reasonable doubt, and there's no evidence to show that he did it. Now, who did it, we don't know. I don't want to speculate, but it obviously I don't think was him at all, regardless of his state of mind, regardless of the drugs, the hallucinations, if there was potential paranormal activity. Those are all things that are probably valid and true, but did not come into play probably in the commission of the crime.
Well, even the talk screens were showing that there were no drugs in the system. There wasn't any alcohol in the system. So, I mean, that whole theory that the drugs drove him to it or the alcohol drove him to it is just ridiculous.
Yeah, alcohol does not cause you to kill your family. Drugs do not cause you to kill your family. The combination of the two do not. I've never heard of such a thing. Not to say it couldn't happen, but smoking weed and drinking absinthe is not going to have result in a family annihilation, especially with some kind of a pact. Now, that certainly could. There are exceptions to that case, but David and Kamel did not drink a lot. I don't think they drank it probably at all. David once in a while would use absinthe. Back in October, where he mentioned that he was using absinthe while editing. Well, that's that's fine. That doesn't mean you're a murderer. And there was no boxes of alcohol in the garage. There was no empty cans and recycling. We haven't seen the results of the refrigerator yet, but I think David was too focused on his project and his deadline and did not spend a lot of time. Both of them were health nuts. You got to realize too, very healthy and working out and keeping fit, and also healthy eating. And so neither one of them were, smoking or drinking. Recreationally, yes, I do believe they were recreational weed users and recreational, possibly social drinkers, but nothing that would cause a family annihilation scenario like this, in my belief.
And one thing that I noticed in the crime scene photos is the police had no issues showing the pot and taking photos of the pot. If there was excess alcohol at the scene, I'm fairly certain they would have photographed all of that.
Correct, and a good point, Sophia, because Greg, do you remember right away when this case the story first broke? It was a day or two later, and that was the angle the police was going with. They said that he was high on weed and he was a frequent marijuana user, and that's what caused all this. And that's what really raised the antenna for a lot of us when we saw the first news coming out of the news stories saying the guy, this alt-right, well, they didn't even use alt-right back then. But
no, they didn't. Yeah.
Conspiracy theorists who used weed killed his family, and that's when we got a lot of members actually joining the page, because because they're saying, well, that doesn't happen. Drugs make you relaxed. Weed makes you relaxed. All you feel is love and being happy. You're not angry and psychotic. So that really, and then that shifted away when I don't think that was really going to sell. Saying that he was on weed and he was in Minnesota here, it is common. Meth is a real problem, and people on meth and meth heads and meth addiction is huge here. But once again, they cause strange things. They break into buildings and they rob people to get money to buy more. They're not killing themselves and their family. So I think they kind of wanted to spin this a meth head kind of a drug overdosed, crazed, kind of a lunatic angle, but that really didn't play too well because common sense that just doesn't come into play.
Hey, I don't mean to intervene. Can anybody hear me by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Like I said, I didn't mean to intervene. Just let me know if possible when I can maybe steal the floor just for a couple seconds because I've been itching.
Yeah, I think you'll be next. I think you're really actually going to be next because I think Sophia, you had a question coming up as well, or not?
I
had a whole list. I think.
Don't want to. Oh, that list is going to Apple Valley PD tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
But I know that Laura, I don't know if she is in the chat room or if she's waiting on the phone, but she had a couple of really great points, and I don't want to take that away from her.
Yes, and that's a good point. In fact, I just saw it here as well, and I will bring that up, and then Laura can speak on that as well. Because when you do the math, when Randy was born in August of 2009, you do the 9-month backtrack to the date of conception. And even if I think, and I'm hoping Laura will elaborate on this a little more. But even if you do a month or two giveaway at either way, David wasn't even in the country when Comel conceived, so to say, little Rania. So we do want to get to that as well. But let's have this gentleman jump in next.
Sure.
Would that be me you're referring to, Dan?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and can you maybe speak a little low because you're coming in very, very hot.
Okay, I'm very sorry. Let me take it off speaker, see if
cool.
that'll help. Hold on.
It's usually the other way where people are too low, like me, but you're the first one who's a little bit too loud.
Yeah, and say your name and also where you're from, because it's interesting to see where all these people are from. Sophia was in the UK, I think. She's England.
Oh, really?
Actually, I'm in South Texas now.
South Texas?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, I was only over there for the military for a little bit.
Oh, I see. Okay. My mistake. Very good. Welcome aboard.
Oh, I'm back now. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate through this menu, and I don't know what I did, but I messed something up. So.
All right, feel free. Go ahead.
I'm very sorry, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead with your question and introduce yourself with your name and also where you're from.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I talk a lot, so please let me announce now that I will try my best to paraphrase. But if I'm going on, just tell me to shut up.
No problem.
But my name's Josh Wilson, and I'm 22, so unfortunately I'm probably one of the younger people, and no, that's not an insult by any means at all. I'm probably one of the younger people that follow the case, but I kind of wanted to introduce how I even started to look into all of this briefly, if that's okay.
Yes, please. We're always looking to see how people get jump on the page here, how they found, how they find their way.
Awesome. Okay, well, so like I said, despite being 22, the cool thing is I can actually say I've been familiar with this case since it happened. I graduated. Oh, by the way, I'm from Coshocton, Ohio. I'm in Ohio in a little town called Coshocton that not too many people know about. But anyway, I graduated in 2014, and one day after a wrestling practice, me and a couple buddies were just sitting around my front room, just watching stuff on YouTube. Well, I'll admit it, yeah, I'm a conspiracy nut. For the young age that I am, I've learned quickly that the world is not all rainbow and sunshine, and the government, I don't really think, is out for our best interest in general welfare. I think I'm a proud American. My parents are both Desert Storm veterans. I just think there's a lot about this country that doesn't make sense, and if you ask questions or question authority, then you're just told to shut up. So that's one thing I've learned very quickly. But anyway, a couple buddies of mine were on YouTube, and I stumbled upon the Gray State trailer. And we watched it, and then when it was over, we all just kind of looked at each other aghast as if we were to say, wow, dude, like, that looks good, and we can all probably agree that some of those trends certainly, unfortunately, could be a reality one day if we don't do something. So a couple months later, I mean, this was obviously after the deaths, but I had forgot about the trailer, and I was talking to somebody about it, one of my buddies who I know shares common interest in this kind of stuff. And I went on YouTube, typed in Gray State, and I started seeing stuff. I started seeing the words David Crowley, murder, Gray Stage, family murder, like crime scene photos. And the first thing that came to my head, this man was killed. This man was making a movie that was going to display some of the evil corruption in this country and some of the plans that listen, here's the thing, too. I'm on the fence. I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and say that FEMA's going to come take your family away at 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm not literally saying that these things occur or are going to occur, and I'm also saying they're not. Or I'm also not saying they're not, but when I immediately saw this and I put two and two together, I thought, okay, a man that, yes, served time, so it's possible he suffers from PTSD or several other diseases, unfortunately, but a man that serves his country and appears to be a very loving human being towards his child, other human beings, and especially his wife. Like you guys, I was listening to the conference call the other night. I listened to actually about 4 hours of it, and everybody is so right when they say that this man does not look like somebody that, whether it was with drugs, alcohol, this man, I don't believe this man snapped. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
Correct.
So, with all that being said, let me kind of conclude by saying I'm on the fence. I'm not here tonight to say that David Crowley is guilty, and I'm not here tonight to say that he's innocent. But at the same time, also a couple questions that have really been bugging me so bad. And I don't think anybody's really touched on this issue a whole lot. At least I haven't seen it. I know very little to nothing about guns, so I'll be forthcoming about that. I'll admit that. But something that bothered me, does anybody know how or why there was copious amounts of hair found all over the house?
Good question. Good question, Josh, and welcome aboard, and thank you for being awake at a young age. I certainly wish that I was awake rather than waking up much later in life. So good job, and keep doing your homework. You're on the right path. Greg, can you talk to the hair? I don't know if it was the owner of the dog said that Paleo's feces, when she brought him home, did contain some doll hair when Paleo first came home. So he was eating some Barbie doll hair, things like that. But what Josh is getting at is the copious amounts of black hair around the house, and that was, it almost looked, some people think that the knife was used to cut off her hair. There was a knife at the scene. Or the dog had gotten into the bodies and started yanking and pulling things off. But I agree, there's lots of hair there. I don't know what it means. I don't know how it could have gotten, all over the place. But I think, Greg, you looked into it more than I did.
Well, there was pooled hair. Go ahead. Go ahead, Josh.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that you'd think, and again, I don't conduct autopsies. I don't hold any of the right PhDs or any of the right criteria to speak on this information and verify it, obviously. But for whatever reason, in whatever state of decomposition your body is in, I would imagine maybe you do lose hair. But again, the amount of hair, even you take Ronnie and you take Camille, it just looks like even more hair than they could have even had on their heads themselves. So, and again, even if you cut the hair off, why? I think, doesn't that kind of shed more light on what would be an honor killing or something of that nature?
Well, I can add in a little bit on that. Once hair comes off of something, it looks like so much more because the weight of it is not holding itself down.
Oh, okay.
And,
that makes sense.
like, also varying degrees of the amount of hair. I'm of Native American descent, and I have, from my father's side, and I have 3 times more hair than my mother has. on my head.
Oh, wow.
So, and I've noticed a lot with Middle Eastern descent people and Latino, we've got a lot of hair.
Right.
Like if you look at a European person that has their hair in a bun versus a Latino that has their hair in a bun, there's a large difference.
And then I had one more question for somebody that can speak more to guns, because, again, I know little to nothing about them. But I have a buddy who recently, unfortunately, was playing with a handgun. Again, I don't know the titles of guns, the specifics about them. I know little to nothing about guns, so let me reiterate that. But I have a buddy recently who was unfortunately playing with a handgun, shot himself, in the chin, self-inflicted gun head wound, and he passed. However, he was able to have an open casket. So that leads me to this question. I know nothing about guns. Can somebody tell me? I know in one of the crime scenes I see what I think has to be a piece of skull. Now, I didn't know. I know guns are powerful, but is a pistol or a 9mm or whatever was used capable of blowing a human head off, so to speak, or clean apart?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
gotcha.
Laura, is that you, Laura?
It is.
Yes. Can you please answer that? That's a good question. I think I listened to your the last conversation. You are a good person to fill in on this. Yeah, go over that for the crowd here a little bit more of the power and what it can do, being a hollow point and a 40 cal.
Well, a 40 cal is an extremely strong gun. The bullets that were being used were bonded, jacketed hollow points, which means they're going to hold their body together, but the tip is formed so that it will mushroom out and do as much damage as possible. There's also different grains and weights of bullets, and these were 180 grain, which are produced and sold as maximum damage bullets.
Gotcha. Kind of like the ones DHS orders every year, huh?
Yes.
Well, actually, a lot of that particular box of bullets are Winchester overruns from federal orders. They're called white box.
Wow.
Very good, Josh. And Laura, here's a good question for you. A person committing suicide would not pull out and say, I'm going to use a hollow point bullet to kill my family. Hollow points are used for...
Well, it depends on... There is always the possibility with a solid bullet, no matter what caliber, if you don't hit the right things correctly, there's always the possibility of survival. So if you are wanting to guarantee death, be it shooting a loved one or shooting an intruder, if you want it to kill, you use a hollow point.
Gotcha. Wow. So, again, that leads back to questions as to why, if he wanted to accomplish this, why he got so specific. Well, I don't know. I guess like you just said, if you want to clearly do damage, you're going to use one of those. Did anybody ever figure out if that was indeed the type of bullet used or not?
Yes. They
Okay,
are,
so
I believe, PDX 180 grain bonded jacketed hollow points.
Okay, so he used a bullet that is guaranteed to do some damage and mess something up pretty bad.
Yes.
Gotcha. Wow. Yeah, another thing to chime in, and again, guys, if I intervene or if I talk too much, please just tell me. I saw that you guys were starting to do conference calls the other day, and I kind of was like, man, I hate that I even had to miss out on the first one, so I definitely want to chime in on this next one. But, and I know all of you guys probably get this vibe too, but I look at the crime scene photos, and you see a family, and you see a house that appears to be normal or operating normally, or everyday people that struggle like we do, have financial problems like we do, have a child. The house doesn't look, I guess, in disarray, if that makes sense, in lack of a better term. It looks like things were going fine, and then boom, which I guess does make sense to the snapped theory. But in my opinion, like I think I told Greg or Dan recently, from what I can gather, David still very much had a lot of great future promises and plans for this movie nearing December of 2014. I'm willing to think, even if something fell through with the mics, this guy had the funding and the resources at this point to get this movie out. So it was going to happen regardless. I really like to think so anyway.
Yep, and that's a good point. And I think just to clarify that, whether it was in movie format or not, working with the mics, it may have been a series or a web series or a made-for-TV series, may not necessarily have been a movie.
Right.
But regardless, he was given the green light and they were moving forward.
Right. And then also something I wanted to point out, which, I mean, it's not really a big deal, but I see a lot of people. Now, dogs are our best friends, and I thank God for dogs. Like, we as humans sometimes I really think don't deserve dogs because of their glory and how they really are. You're truly your best friend that will never betray you. However, I don't find it astonishing that Paleo wasn't able to walk over to his dog food and say to himself, hey, this is what they usually open up and feed me. I'm going to tear into it. You know, I'm not really that surprised that a dog wasn't able to himself go start to eat at his dog food. But at the same time, here's my question, too. I saw somebody's article about how a dog can and will and has been known in the past to start to feed on its owner's corpses. But at the same time, I couldn't see a 150-pound German Shepherd doing what has allegedly been done to these bodies. Paleo looks to me like a 15 to 20-pound beagle. Is that false? Or how accurate is that?
Laura, you might be able to. Laura can expand more on that. The dog was a beagle mid-size, maybe 20, 30 pounds, but they can do that. And I think the good question that was raised on the 5-hour broadcast is, and I think Eric was his name who brought it up, is, and I think this is an important point. We see the photos of the pictures of the dog food, one opened, one closed. Why didn't the dog do it? And Eric made a good point, and I believe this to be true, is the dog will go to the food that's that's most easily accessible food source when he's hungry. So if the bodies are laying right there, he's not going to think to, hey, I'm going to go open up this dog food. If the bodies weren't there, I think he would have torn into those dog food bags real easy. But he didn't have a need to get to the dog food, and that's just my opinion. Laura, is that a correct statement, do you think, after that last broadcast?
They're
readily accessible.
Yes.
Readily accessible.
Readily accessible. That was the phrase.
Fresher, in quotation marks, more natural, instinctive.
Yep. So he had already switched gears.
And they're bloodhounds.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with that they're bloodhounds? I'm sorry, it's Tracy again.
That's a good question.
Definitely
Laura.
does. Absolutely.
Laura, could you answer that one? Did she drop off?
No, I'm here. It's Tracy, though.
Which question specifically?
Is a beagle mix is a part bloodhound? Would that be even more natural for them to go to the bodies sooner rather than bags?
I can't really say that. I mean, dogs depend on their sense of smell so much, and being closer to the hound side means that they're going to be more receptive. Like the sensors in the nose are a little bit more heightened, but not any more than like my Doberman. Really. I mean, if there's fresh blood, readily accessible, it's a dog.
I mean, we're talking about
I know
brains.
my stupid
We're
dog.
talking about
When
eyes.
I get a cut on my leg, a little mosquito bite, and scratch it. Both my little chihuahuas will lick the wound for some strange, odd reason.
Yeah, I also wonder. Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to interject.
Go ahead.
Oh, if anybody has ever watched on YouTube, there is videos of like animals, say dogs or cats or whatever, for raw feeding, and there are actually tests of dogs, eating their dry kibble versus a raw food. And the videos are on YouTube, and dogs most likely eat the raw food. It smells better, than your dry kibble.
Well, I mean, a dog's not going to naturally go to corn or grains. I mean, mine are going to go drag up dead things out of the woods before they raid my garden. And most dog foods now, and granted you have your specialized ones, but that is actually an IAMS dog food. Sophia and I were up till like 3 o'clock in the morning on the phone, and we wound up finding the exact brand, the exact kind of dog food that it is. It's just natural.
Is it really natural, more natural than the dog going after a source of food that it would get every day?
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
I don't know
it smells
if you saw
better.
my comment. I don't know if you saw my comment on my bones post from today. I don't know why they're still sitting there, but the bones are still sitting on my couch. I haven't taken them outside for the dogs. And my cat, who has a bowl full of food, who I was just feeding pretzels to, hops up on the couch and starts chewing on the bones that are on my couch when she has open dog food or open cat food in her bowl. Now, you also have to take into mineral deficiencies. I have a horse here that when he's deficient in iron, he will go start licking a rusty gate, and that's when I know I need to go get a mineral block. So if they're craving something, they'll go to it as well.
But I mean, we're not just talking about, flesh, right? We're not just talking about bones. We're talking about flesh and bones and how much of it too. And the other thing is let's say the dog did do this, right? Let's just say that the dog did all of that. The damage that we're looking at, the scene that we are looking at, does it match up with how a dog mauling or a dog feasting, whatever you want to call it, does it match up with how that should look? Because I've seen a lot of people, a lot of places talk about, yes, dogs eat flesh, they eat bones. Okay, but what does that look like? And then how can we compare that to this so that we can even get more factual data and, get more data to say, okay, this is even more reason why the dog did it.
How detailed do you want that explanation?
I don't know. That's a loaded question.
What level of creepy do you want me to stop at? Okay, when
let's go.
A dog or a canine or a feline is feasting on a limb, they're holding it down with their front legs, they're grabbing flesh, and they're pulling it off. Now, digits and end pieces and ends of bones. I don't know who all here are listening has a dog that has dog treats or those long clean it teeth things. They'll put one paw on it and one paw under it, and they'll turn their head sideways and just go to town with their molars. It's not using the front teeth to rip hair flesh. So that's how those bones don't exist. They are disintegrating them with their molars.
But what kind of stains does that leave?
That's not going to leave that much. I mean, you'll have a little bit on the muzzle and a little bit on the paws. And especially since it's not actively flowing blood. Where you get those gory faces and stuff that a lot of people see in their head when they think animal chewing on flesh is more so when they are going into the abdominal cavity or into the groin region where there's not a lot of room and they got to get their nose up in there to get what they're after.
Why would the dog stop at the daughter's arm? Why not keep going? Why stop at David's hand? Why not keep going? And same thing with the wife. It's almost like, this was a very clean dog.
You also have to think of his size. He's not going to go after the thigh first. I mean, he's looking at it. His eyeballs are bigger than his head, going, yep, that's it. He's going to start at the ends, at the edges.
Well, and he could have gotten sick if they've been decomposing or whatever, and then he's like, oh, I don't like that anymore.
A lot of that is Clostridium and E. coli. Highly doubt Salmonella, but the bacteriums can upset the gut.
Why were there no bugs?
No bugs? Yeah, no bugs, no...
Well, see, I'm in Alabama. We've got bugs year-round, so that was one of my initial questions. But I don't know and highly doubt that there is a lot of bug activity in Minnesota in the dead of winter. Even with the door open, flies don't fly around when it's cold.
Temperatures in hospital.
Absolutely true.
You guys are lucky in Minnesota.
Yeah, there's a couple things like box elder bugs that come out in the spring and things like that are stuck in your windows, whatnot, kind of crawl around, but there's no like super large amounts of that. It's like 1 or 2 here and there.
So this pulled hair that is mentioned in these reports, is that, we can assume that's from the dog too and not from this knife, right?
I have a question.
Without better pictures, I can't say.
I have a question.
There,
Laura.
I do see some pieces where there is hair still attached to scalp. And that would be either from the head disintegrating, like a blown off particle piece, or the dog pulling.
Dan, go ahead.
I have a question, Laura. It goes back to the hair, and I never thought of this before, but I wonder if they did testing with the microscope on those strands of hair to see if there was root still attached or if they were clean off. If it was clean, then a knife was used. If it was to the root and everything, it was either pulled or yanked by the dog or someone else or something. But that would be the only way to indicate if the hair strands were pulled or yanked or actually cut clean off. By looking at it under a microscope, you can see if it's got that root attached.
Well, a lot of times you don't even need a microscope.
Okay, gotcha.
You can test it yourself right now, pull a couple hairs out, and you can see the little bulb at the end of the hair.
Yeah, and someone in the chat room just said, too, that you can see, the naked eye, you can see some root in some of those strands of hair, that it looks like it was yanked or with the dog or something. So I still don't believe what that knife was at the scene, what that knife was used for at the scene. I don't think it was used to cut anybody's hair off at all, and it certainly didn't have blood on it, so it didn't impact the flesh wound at all, so I'm not sure what it was even there.
And Jean, I believe I'm saying it right. I don't know if it's Jean or Jeanne.
Yeah, it's Jean.
I'm sorry. She makes a good point there, as Ronnie's bones would be softer than fully developed adult bones.
Correct. Okay.
So then why not go after all of her bones then? Why did he go after just...
Well, we don't know at what point he stopped. We don't know which hand was first, where it started. I mean, when he was close to being done with the arm, could be when everybody showed up.
And the other thing to keep in mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, but I think with the dog scavenging like that, I don't believe he would sit there and chew on the hand or the arm, but he would first yank it off and then go to a spot and chew on it, right? He would pull it off first, for instance, Comel's hands. Go to a different spot in the house and sit there and eat on it and chew on it. He wouldn't sit there when it was still attached. That was my impression.
To an extent.
In the hands as well.
There's psychology behind that. In a pack instinctual situation, you get your piece that you're going to eat and you go over to here, and then dog B gets this piece and goes over there, so there's not everybody at the dinner table, so to speak. And I mean, okay. I don't mean to dehumanize it that much, but it...
Another thing that hasn't been shared, and I'll share it here tonight for the first time, is someone who did see the other images said that there was a human hand in the basement that the dog had been chewing on. So that led me to believe that he was pulling off appendages or body parts and going in feeding on them in other locations. He wasn't sitting
That's very, very possible.
But I just wanted to share that because that's not public information yet, and I just want to make sure that we do get that out there tonight, that there was a hand found in the basement. Probably David's missing hand is what I'm guessing.
Well, how do we know that? How do we know how do we know that there was a hand? And if there was a hand, why isn't it mentioned in any of the police reports?
Well, that's the other thing, because the police reports mentioned that no other body parts were found or collected, really, except small fragments of things. And I would think that if a hand was there, that would be in the police report and photographed. Not sent to us because the gruesome nature, but it would at least be mentioned and photographed. I believe this person be telling the truth when they mention that to me. So, and we don't have to expend any time on it now, but that's what I've heard, that there was one found in the basement.
Well, I mean, it's very natural for a dog to take a piece of food to a safe spot or away from the initial body.
Yep.
Because, I mean, if you've got 20 coyotes eating on a deer, there's not room. So it's just a natural thing to take it and go and eat.
Can we elaborate on this pregnancy theory? Because I'm really intrigued by that.
Yes, Laura, we are interested. I want to hear this, the math that you did. What is the information on that you learned today?
Well, I was doing my little cheat sheet, and I wanted to make sure that what I was putting in were correct dates. So for the first time, I pulled up, I don't know who made the timeline or posted it, but I pulled up, I guess, the latest version of the timeline in the files on the Facebook group, and it says that in June of 2008, David was deployed to Afghanistan. Well, I had just gotten Ronnie's birthday from Greg, and I went, wait a minute, that doesn't add up. So at this point, it's just a theory until we have an exact date that David left the country, because a lot of times you'll get deployment papers and then you have prep and everything else, so you're still in country for a few months or whatnot.
Sure.
But
he was still on stop loss. Yeah.
For Ronnie to have been born reasonably on time, a little either side of a due date.
Are you still there?
Yep.
Hello? When is her birthday?
August 9th. August 6th.
6th.
Of 2009.
Can anyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
We hear you.
Oh, you can. Okay. A couple times, this is Christine. A couple times I was like, can I interject? And I didn't think you could hear me because nobody answered.
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
No, that's okay. I'm on my landline that's connected to the wall, so it's 1987 over here.
Oh, good.
I wanted to add to the dog part. I was really kind of against the whole dog eating the people. I still am a little bit, but I did notice on the side, where the recliner is or was, and it looks like kind of blood smear, or there's it's not like drops, it's kind of like a smear. And I kept thinking, why did they take so many pictures of that? Well, if you look at it really close, there's scratches on the floor, and that's on the wood floor. And I thought, well, what could that be from? And maybe I think, who is it, Laura, was saying that the dog will grab the bone or whatever and lay down, and then that would scrape the floor. I don't mean to be graphic, but that kind of fit with that smear and then the scratches on the floor. That kind of would fit with the dog.
Are you talking about the smear on the recliner?
It would have been behind the recliner on the wood floor. It's not really a smear. It looks like it's almost looks like it's a dark, yep. Almost looks like it could have been a shoe scuff or something, but I think it's blood, and then there's scratches on the wood floor when you zoom in.
Yeah, that looked like blood to me.
Yeah, so I was like, well, how could that be there? Did someone it kind of made me think someone drugged the body or something, but obviously, or
Well,
not, it's maybe
I have a question about the blood behind the recliner as well, because in looking at the trajectories and where the brass fell on the floor, you can kind of assume where the gun was shot from, whomever shot the gun. Where the recliner is, potentially probably should be a void behind it.
Right.
Because the blood's not just going to hop over the recliner and hit the floor.
That's true.
Yeah, and there's a little piece of blood and a little piece of hair at the very top of that recliner too. So,
And that's going to be
maybe
splattered.
Well, but it's not over the whole recliner. It's just on this one spot, right?
That's this is
Or no,
not
I mean,
right. This is the graphic-y part of it. That is more tissue than just blood. It's not just a fluid spot, it's tissue. And
Right, but if you look at the top of the recliner, it looks like someone almost had a bloody shirt or something, and they pressed against the top corner, not the bottom where David's hand was, but the top.
Yeah.
Where that hair and that little piece of whatever that was, brain matter, that's where it kind of looks like something pressed on it.
Yeah, I was thinking that might have been from the dog's foot. Maybe the dog was, the blood and the hair was on its feet, and for whatever reason it jumped up onto that recliner or something. That's the only thing that I could think of that would make any sense. But the
if
blood
you take
splatter,
the angle of it and match it to the angle of the blood splatter on
that wall,
like if you were standing on the corner of the carpet back towards the hallway.
Yeah. There's
that
definitely
angle
blood
matches.
splatter there. Yeah. Okay.
And personally,
That's important.
looking at the trajectory, I think, and the DNA results also indicate that theoretically, you don't want to say this is fact or anything like that, but the evidence points to Kamel was standing kind of at the corner of the rug and was probably heading towards the couch, towards the shooter. So the shooter's back was to the wall where the writing is, because where the brass fell onto.
Hello?
Yep. Did we lose you?
Nope,
Lost
I'm
somebody.
here.
Okay.
It just kind of went, ooh.
Yeah, I know. It's like cleared up.
Some
Go ahead.
just random technical difficulties every so many minutes.
Yeah. That's normal, right?
As long as I was the question that I had, Greg, regarding the DNA, Sophia that was on earlier kind of asked the same thing that I was asking or going to ask about the not matching a particular person, or there was like a third person perhaps, but that's to do with the nuclear DNA, and I think Dan kind of talked to Sophia about that. So that kind of answered that, and mine was kind of about the fingerprints being, not very many fingerprints.
And one thing about nuclear DNA is it's not just in blood. You can get nuclear DNA from saliva, snot.
Right.
Well, is it possible that they just don't know whose it is, or are we certain that it's definitely somebody else's? It's a fourth party, not a fifth party if you include the dog in that question.
I would think it would mean that I don't know, I think I read something where it said there was DNA that didn't match, but then there was like a million possibilities that it wouldn't be someone else, which I didn't.
Right. Oh, right. Yep.
It was some weird wording, but then think of all the people that might have been in their house for, party or occasion since they live there. I mean, your DNA, I think, could still be there.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like they tested it against their database, and it didn't come, it didn't come up with anything. But hey,
there is one number on there. I'm trying to pull up the PDF real quick, but like everything else says like 99.9998% or 9997%. There's one
based
number
on what though?
there.
Right.
That's going to be matching it to the blood
to their
DNA
database
that they drew from the 3 of them.
Okay.
So they're
but then how did they prove that it's nobody else, because it's so close to those 3?
Yes, all the alleles, they pull a certain amount of alleles from the DNA, and they'll take alleles A and alleles B and try to match them. And if everything matches up to 99.9%, it's a match. So if the match is, like, I'm just throwing out numbers. I'm not a forensics person, really. I just research a lot. If it's a very close match, enough to be immediate family, be it mother, father, twin, but you didn't pick the right set of alleles, like only
brother
half that match up exactly. You can say it's not anybody else, but we can't say it's this person.
Right.
If that makes sense.
That's kind of how I understood it.
But one of those numbers is like a 97.3%. And that kind of threw me off a little bit.
Yeah,
So
if you can find what document and what page. All right, go ahead. I cut somebody off.
No. I had some. I'm trying to think of when.
Greg, did you ever have any luck getting that Natasha girl to agree to join the conference call?
She's actually going to be chatting with Dan. They're doing a recording tomorrow night, and so I'm sure Dan's going to post that after.
Gotcha, okay. I just didn't know if maybe she'd be willing to share some of the information she's already shared on the page on the call, because I saw a huge post from her that I still need to go read later. Not a post, but a comment that I believe her, a comment to an answer you might have asked.
It's in the files under the Crowley DNA results.
Okay, I'll go check.
I don't mean to deviate, but has anybody else came to their conclusion about the bloody footprint? Because as much as I hate to say it, I don't have a doubt in my mind that's David's feet.
But why is it only 1 foot? It's only the right foot.
Yeah. And why is it like the front part of the foot? It almost looks like they were holding.
Yeah, I'm lost. But as much as I hate to say it, and by the way, I have a foot phobia, so I don't want to put an impression across that I gave this a lot of thought or study. But in the documentary, when they're at the birthday party, he's in his bare feet standing on the back deck talking to somebody, and you can clearly see his feet, and he's got long, skinny, bony toes. And in that bloody footprint, I see what looks like a very long, second, skinny, bony toe and toes.
And the first toe is crooked.
Yes. And then also, Greg, I have a question for you, sir, that I've been meaning to ask you for a really long time.
Sure.
Okay. I see, by the way, I'm a huge fan of what you do, man. You do excellent work, and I really wish you'd pursue some kind of investigative journalist degree or something. Not that you haven't, but you do excellent work. So first and foremost, I did want to tell you that you are awesome, and thanks for all the work and effort you've devoted to this, because I, too, hope that one day something gets figured out.
Well, thank you.
Dan, too.
Yeah, and Dan, too. And everybody, you know.
But, well, anyway, my question is, I see your videos, and I see the Bohemian Grove stuff, so I know that you also, like me, question things and question official stories and how the country works a little bit. So with that being said, and again, I'm not for all of the things in Gray State that David displayed happening literally, but what is it exactly about the Gray State trailer that you didn't really find amusing or find true? Do you think things like the trip could be a reality adventure, or do you think it was all a bunch of hooey?
I think it's all a bunch of crap, really. I think it's fear porn. I think David lived it though, because he was doing that, right? He was over there, And that's what they were doing. So for me, it's what they were doing yesterday. It's not what they're doing now, and it's not what they're going to be doing later. Yes, they are doing something, but I don't think there's going to come a day where we're going to be in FEMA camps. I think it's going to be a lot worse.
Right.
It's
we're watching a Masonic figure
case scenario kind of situation.
But yeah, I was just curious because, like I said, I'm not for a Masonic figure in an apron, literally making a public display out of beheading people with a guillotine and all that. But here's my confusion too. I get a few different impressions from David watching interviews. Was he out for this movie project because he believed this stuff, or when he was talking to the mics and he talks about the proverbial fish in a barrel, was this guy out because he knew that there was a wacky kind of nutty crowd for this movie that would have indeed, watched it and paid for it?
Both.
I think only David knows, I think only he's the one who really knows that answer. So we can speculate and guess on it, but only he could really. I would hate to answer it. Go ahead.
I would choose B, or the second one. I think David knew. I mean, I think he, went through, of course, things when he was in, serving, but I think part of him, to me, seemed he knew his audience, and I think I remember kind of
opportunistic.
That. And, I mean, maybe not opportunistic, but just, I guess so, yes, in a way, but I think it was a passion to make this movie for people that, believed that, or I'm not saying that's wrong, but I think that he was passionate about it. I don't think he was trying to, take advantage of anybody. I just think but I don't think that he really thought that way, but I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, he put off a couple mixed impressions. I didn't really know how to interpret a couple of his interviews because, like I said, I was under the impression, once again, like I said earlier, I watched the trailer when it initially came out a few years ago, and I was still in high school, and I was immediately, we all know Hollywood entertainment, that's what it's for, is to entertain you and give you the oohs and the ahs, but I looked at it as wow, this movie needs to come out, and I need to show people this, because this is right up my alley. And then I get on YouTube a couple months later, and all I can find is about how this man just so happened to have supposedly murdered his daughter and his wife and then turned the gun on himself. And that's when it all started. That's when every bit of looking into this started, and every bit of questioning as to why a man that had so much going for him and that seemed to be, David had a towering intellect. I can't even fathom some of the things that went through that guy's head as far as how smart he was and talented he was. But at the same time, I'm seeing more and more every day that mental health literally is a monster that digs a hole in your heart and doesn't display itself. So not really just into your heart, but your mind, your psyche. There are people that can put off a life and put off a persona, and behind closed doors and behind walls somehow be a different person. And unfortunately, it sounds like that could very well be the case here.
I definitely know people who, I definitely know that type, and that's one thing from the very start that I've been looking for is proof of, physical violence, verbal anything, and just I'm not seeing anything. I'm hearing things, but when you're dealing with that question, it's you got to be very serious for some of these people to come out and say that David was controlling his wife, he was doing this. That's a serious thing. So you have to be able to back that up, or don't say it, or just phrase it correctly, in my gut, or I think that sometimes when they phrase it as fact, people buy that, and I'm just not sure if there's any proof for that.
Yeah, there's some hardcore conspiracy folks in the group. I'm not going to name any names. That some of their things that they state as fact are just so far out in left field that, yes, they believe it, but some of it makes you giggle.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples?
They believe it, and that's okay. Go ahead.
Examples?
Yeah, as in, I'm just curious to see some of the lunacy that you've read that is just so far off and probably can't be even close to true.
Radio wave mind control.
Oh, my gosh. Is that a theory from somebody in the group?
Uh-huh.
I don't believe that, but I believe in the. I believe in the documentary.
They do have some weapons out there since World War II that can alter your brainwaves and pressure your brain into changing, and you turn into a different person.
I don't know anybody that exists that doesn't think something's fishy about her.
But
I just think the video where they showed
why would you target?
You just think what?
With the wife, I think like when they showed when she was like kind of going crazy and stuff like that, I think that it could have. Well, I mean, I think we have to remember that you could edit this way any way you want. Like, she could have been describing a dream, and like you wake up out of a dream and you're talking about it. So, you know what I mean, like groggy.
Like a rapture.
I mean. Yeah, he could have been fooling around like, yeah, hey, this is what you told me at 2 o'clock this morning. You were crazy dreaming. And that was left on his phone, and they edited it to believe, like, I'm not saying that happened. I'm just saying that I don't know. I just don't understand every part of what they showed in that documentary was, like, other than the birthday party was the only, and even that they were ripping apart.
Right.
Like,
right.
If there's somebody that's such a great family in the beginning of the documentary, like, we didn't get to see so much as a great family other than a few parts. Like, you show them being nice to kids, and then he's telling them, oh, we're going to come out and drag you out the FEMA, say banana. You know what I mean? Like, they were driving that whole documentary that he was almost like, yeah. And I think somewhere they even said he had multiple personalities. You know what I mean?
Mhm. No, they are showing us what they want us to talk about. But the real story, the real thing, always comes back to the facts. Always comes back to those documents. It's the documents. It's those photos. It's what the cops did, what they saw. That is the real story here, and we just have to be careful about people who are constantly trying to take us into a different way. You've got to be very, very careful.
I just don't understand. I don't understand the point of that documentary where they would think that, being conspiracy theories that are out there and stuff like that. There's so many people, like, ridiculous. I've seen 9/11. I've seen the plane go through. I don't care what anybody tells me. I was a block away. I don't believe in that crap. But
well, and it's like there's some of the people that are like, well, are we sure that that's their bodies?
Right. But I just don't, I don't understand what the purpose of releasing that documentary is out. Forget about the people who did it, like his friend, his brother,
we were going to take it as fact and that he was crazy and did it, and we'd shut up about it.
Well,
I know, but it wasn't really highly publicized. Like, it wasn't really that publicized. Like,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just don't think that, I just feel like the friend or whatever, I don't think he expected the backlash that he's getting, but he deserves it because, this really wasn't a big open story until, you know what I mean, this documentary came out. People are going to judge a million different ways, a million different scenarios, a million different conspiracies, whatever. Did he honestly think, we were going to, there's going to be people that are not, I don't know why you'd want to put yourself in the public eye like that. I don't. And or even talk about your, my friend committed suicide. I wouldn't tell her story to anybody. I don't get it.
Josh, I think you wanted to say something. Or do we have some other people here? Anybody else too? If you guys want to speak, please let us know. We're just all chatting here.
One thing I wanted to ask real quick. By the way, the few people that I've had watch the documentary, I have them come into the documentary with no knowledge about David, his family, or what occurred. I just kind of give them the brief breakdown of, hey, watch this documentary, and I watch it with them. I remain quiet. I say, watch this. tell me what you think. And I believe the 3 people that I've had watch it so far are now going mad on YouTube and doing research for answers themselves. So if there is one thing the documentary I can say is good about it, and look at the steady uprising in members coming to the group and members that are starting to question this and want to get to the bottom of this more. And then also, I wanted to ask you guys something, what your thoughts were about the pact theory when it comes to this standpoint, because up until I watched the documentary, I had no knowledge of how this could have even allegedly been a pact theory, or so to speak, or anything of that nature. So here's my opinion.
Oh, yeah, they've been pushing that forever.
Yeah, I didn't know that until the documentary. But the key piece, and I think you guys all agree, obviously, if we could somehow get a hold of that iPhone and hear that whole, 7-minute and 30-second clip or 8-minute clip of the rapture or whatever was going on, in that clip you hear Kamel say, I don't know, it's just like my scientific side's questioning it, which I, as a religious person, I know that there's always a conflict between science and religion and questioning your spirituality or if what you're experiencing is the truth or not. So that right there kind of gives me a red flag about questioning my scientific side. It clearly points to something spiritual that she's kind of in doubt about. You know what I mean? And doesn't know if she should do.
Well, there's some things that you just can't take on faith. I mean, I know there are a lot of people that do, but that's kind of like trusting somebody for their word. Are they a good person? Do you trust their word? Or do you not really know them that well, so you got to ask some questions? And I think that's where we are here.
I'm speaking more on the fact that the word ascension, I know you have your connotation and then your denotation. I know the dictionary meaning of it. Doesn't it mean like to ascend to their version of heaven or whatnot? When I hear the word ascend and then I hear Kamel talking about, I'm just questioning with my scientific side, I'm just trying to make it all make sense. That just kind of pops up as a red flag to me about, them maybe discussing a possible pact theory or leaving here for what they thought might have been a better place or something. I just think that kind of supports it, if there is anything that might support it at all.
Hey, Josh, your microphone is kind of cutting in and out.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm speaking on speaker and I'm talking on a junk old phone. By the way, I just wanted to say I've got my little girl here, so I'm going to go ahead and hop off here. I just wanted to tell all you guys thank you very, very much for having me, being so gracious and letting me speak. Like I said, I've been following this case since I was in high school, and I've literally, people I talk about look at me like I'm some idiot and don't even want to hear about it. So I'm glad that I know a group of people that wake up every day and make it their point to look into this more and stuff like that. So once again, thank you guys. I hope everybody has a good weekend, and God bless. Be safe in this crazy road, of course, okay?
Thanks, Josh.
God bless you, Josh. Yeah. Keep up the great work, man.
Absolutely. You guys have a good weekend and be safe. And I can't wait to see some updated videos. Or Dave, when will the upload take place, or the video take place of you and Natasha?
Probably tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow evening is the plan. Publish it tomorrow evening.
And silly question, will that be via conference call or live in any format, or will you just do that and then eventually upload it?
I'll just do that and then upload it.
Gotcha. Okay, excellent. Awesome. Thank you, guys. You guys have a good weekend and figure it out. Figure it out, please. See you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Thank you, brother.
Bye.
Hey, how do I hang up on this? Can somebody point me to that direction, please?
You millennial.
He's funny.
I've never used
a millennial. All right. Josh has left the building. Dan, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm just going to roll off here in a few minutes. I was going to ask, Laura, did we ever get the answer on that, the timing for Rani, or was I sidetracked?
Oh.
Well, without exact date of leaving the country, we can't know the answer to that, and I don't.
So the question is,
what's the question here?
If he was overseas, would he have had?
If he left in June, he's not, unless he came back for some reason, and normally they won't just send you back for Thanksgiving. is, and I'm not making this as an accusation or anything, just putting it out there, the dates don't add up that if he was deployed in June, Ronnie's not David's daughter.
Okay, and that's just a fact.
Ronnie looks like David to me.
I think that when we do the math, would Kamel have visited him on deployment, or would he have come home on visit on deployment? Or are those
especially on a stop-loss situation, I would think that there's a huge chance of them going AWOL. I don't think that they would just let them come home.
Okay.
I mean, if you're overseas, you only get to come home for serious emergencies.
So not probable, but possible.
Maybe it wasn't natural. Could it be that she was, going through doctors to get pregnant, and that's why they let him home?
You would
it wasn't.
If the timing's right, was he home when she was born?
No, I don't.
Oh.
Because you would never time it to actually have a baby while your husband's deployed on purpose.
Well, not if you're in the middle of fertility, because when he wasn't expected to be deployed at that time, if I'm correct, right? That was the second time?
Yeah.
That's
he
true.
wasn't expecting to. He never planned, but he didn't want to. He was forced.
He
He was
forced.
supposed to be being discharged, and then all of a sudden they called him back.
Okay, so that's why everybody's looking into the time and trying to figure out the exact time and date and all that. What date would it have to be in order for Ronnie? I mean, I can't believe we're even talking about this. Really, like he looks.
I believe
like
they gave the date.
Yeah, I
There's
believe
DNA test.
it is. I also believe it's he's the father. But from the math and the facts of it, if we take the August 6th date and back out 40 weeks, for instance, what would that give us? And give or take a couple weeks from there.
Well, hold on, I'll pull up the calculator.
Is it possible at all that she's even with Kamel?
Yeah, I'd like to start there.
And then we've got a fair. Then we've got a fair argument at least.
What is 40 weeks is how many months? I'm sorry.
10. So we go 8.
Because I was
8
days and said 260 days from the last known cycle. Sorry, the end of cycle. I don't know. It's weird because I always thought you were pregnant for 9 months until I got pregnant, and then no, it's longer.
It can vary.
Or 11 like
It
me.
can vary.
Right, I was past due, so I was pregnant forever.
Now,
Me too. 10 and a half.
From August 6, 2009, subtract 40 weeks would be Halloween of 2008.
So was he, give or take 2 weeks roughly, was David Crowley with Kamel in that 4-week period? If the answer is no, then we got a legitimate question. Whether or not it pertains to the murders, it may.
I mean, because if,
But it's
and
a fair
it's a
question.
big if,
Yeah, it is a fair question.
It's
But
a
who can
ballpark.
answer the question? Where can we
Hey,
get the
comment.
answer?
What was their wedding day?
Yeah, I was looking that up. May 15th or May 21st.
Because I thought they were getting married because he was deploying.
Now I'm thinking they're getting married. Yeah.
No, the way I understood it, they got married, and then he suddenly got hit with this second deployment that he didn't want to go on.
Right.
And I believe they did give the date. They did give the
he
date
was
in the
out.
documentary.
Yeah, he was out in
he was out.
2009. That's what I'm trying to figure out the exact, because it seems more likely that he would have been out, right, and out of the service by this time.
But wouldn't that question be answered within the DNA results? I mean,
Yes, right? That's what I'm thinking.
They would say, okay, they would have to say that she was eliminated as a biological child, I would think, to David, if that was
They would
the
have
case.
tell
You would
us.
think that would have came up. I don't know.
Everything okay over there?
Yeah,
I'm
what's
good.
going on?
I
Who is
don't
that?
know.
They have to call.
Danny.
Who's that trouble?
We'll have to call Maury.
Well, I got
Wow.
that timeline, so I'll go back and check it. And really, we're looking at is Halloween time frame in 2008, the whereabouts of David Crowley. Is that the question, roughly?
I think the date he was deployed last would be on his DD.
It's not. It just has a cumulative service time.
Okay.
It doesn't have dates of deployment. I did go look at that first.
Yeah, we
before I
can move
said
forward. We don't
anything.
need to spend any more time on that here tonight, but it is worth looking into, I guess.
Yeah.
What other questions do we have? I'm going to jump off here in about 5 minutes, Greg. Anything else that you guys can think of before I got to roll? You guys can certainly stay on.
Let's see.
So that was just my major find for tonight. So
Is there anybody who hasn't talked yet? Anyone that wants to kind of chime in on anything or bring up a new topic? Yeah, Jean?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
yes, ma'am.
How are you guys doing?
All right.
Yeah, sorry, I had this all planned out and then had to have an early birthday birthday party for my son. But, so, as far as like the DNA that you were wondering about, Greg, they usually test everyone for that nuclear, and it, like I said, it usually comes from the mother's side, and I was thinking that they were probably testing to see if, because wasn't their blood mixed up, and they were testing to see if there was any blood of Ronnie's around, like Mel's, being she was closest to her.
The only thing in the DNA report that has Ronnie's blood definitively is what I assume to be the bullet that rolled out of the carpet when the cleaners were there.
Oh, okay.
Everything
How is that
is
possible?
Yeah.
cannot be excluded.
See, that's kind of strange because usually the blood will mix up, like, because they were kind of all close together when they were shot, or, I mean, that's the way it seems. But, like, it usually always contaminates, so they, unless they didn't test, like, a certain
If
area.
they didn't get the right one.
Yeah, then, but that's usually why they're supposed to swab a variety of areas, that even if it doesn't look like blood, you swab it anyway. So that's
like reading those DNA reports,
it's
I'm like,
confusing
well,
to me
I live
that
in
they don't have like more, like, I haven't had time to read like all the lab reports, but it doesn't seem to me that they collected that much, because it takes a lot of time. It doesn't just take a few to several hours to collect and to process a scene. The shortest time that I was at a crime scene was 24 hours, and that was exhausting. And that was just a one-person crime. I mean, the one-person victim.
That's about what this one was. Maybe even under 24 hours, actually.
It was
I'm
under
only looking at
24.
like 14 or 15 swabs that they did for DNA.
Yeah, see, and I don't know. To me, that just doesn't make sense for the amount of time. I mean, it makes sense for the amount of time that's only how much they got, but they should have gotten more, being that there was 3 victims, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm just, as far as
is it possible that maybe they have those and we just, they have those reports and we just don't have them?
On the DNA report, I have it right now. It said something of, well, I don't have the whole thing. I've just got those 4 pages that I had pulled out. But it had, like, X through X was not tested. Will be saved for further analysis if needed, kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, because if they do have other, samples and stuff that they did take and just didn't test, then somewhere in there could be something that
this is like the missing puzzle, so to say. I don't know. I just don't. To me, that's like the cleanest crime scene I've seen. Because even one person, I've been to one victim crime, and there's like so much blood. It's ridiculous. Especially where they were laying. The blood's going to drain out, and it's just a very, very clean scene. I did show the photo that Dan shared with my boss, and the moment he looked at it, he not even a second in, he said, "That's a murder. That's not a murder-suicide." And he's just retired from state police, so I don't know.
Well, as to the amount of blood, not only what Dan was talking about earlier is that the heart stops, blood stops going. You'll still have a little bit of flow rate or whatnot. But I had to euthanize a pony with a .40 caliber with the same exact bullets. It's the exact same gun, the exact same bullets that David used. I had to euthanize a pony a month and a half ago. Granted, the shape of the skull is going to change pressures and directionality of things. But there was less than a cup of blood that came out.
Well, depending, like we said, even with, all of them being shot in the head, like with Kamel being shot twice, that kind of.
Can I throw out something?
Go ahead.
There's a possibility that she was shot 3 times.
Oh wow! So have they brought up even the thing about honor killings or anything like that? Has that been has anybody talked about that?
Yeah, it's been brought up a lot, really.
But not, I think I did hear, actually, now I remember somebody saying that they thought maybe they brought up her dad, but I know also other people from that religion, if they weren't happy about it, they take it upon themselves to do it if they're that firm of a believer in that, because it seems to me her father was trying to avoid them living that kind of life over there, right? That's why they moved from Pakistan.
Oh, that's the impression that
I read that somewhere.
We don't really know, dad really hasn't been clear on that.
Oh, okay, because I thought I read it somewhere that that was the reason he had moved, because he didn't want, how the women are treated completely different than the men. So it just seemed to me obviously it wouldn't be the dad, but there's a lot of obviously a lot of Muslim communities there.
But it's 6 years later, right? So they're married in May of 2008, May 14th, 2008.
That's when they got married?
That's when they're married, right.
Okay, I'll put that on the cheat sheet.
Then I think that was one of the questions, the whole honor killing thing, because then again, we're just talking about it, but there's going to be people that hear this and think, oh, well, they all think that it was this or it was that, when we're just all talking, trying to really figure out what happened here. But so the whole honor killing thing was always well, why did they wait so long, right? Why wouldn't they do it sooner? Why do it now? Why do it at this time? And if David was really this thin, and if he was having all of these mental problems and all that stuff, okay, I can definitely see that, but I just don't see any proof of it. If they have it, it seems like they would have put that out there. They're kind of teasing. People are teasing that they have this stuff, but I don't really think they do.
And how about the theory that I think I posted it earlier this week. It was earlier this week. I don't remember the day, but it was about because it looks like you guys were saying earlier, like their house was like everyday life. The dishwashers being dishes are being put in, and they're walking around without their shoes, in like lounging clothes, like. And somebody said, why did David have so much layers of shirts on? Well, he might have been outside, like doing, sweeping the snow or something. And I don't know, just like a surprise kind of thing, or someone they knew, which seems like the more likelihood because there's no sign of struggle, what have you. And as far as like the blood on the, on the wall, I mean, they could have easily, I hate to even say that, but that's why the hand was gone to right on the wall, and
Yeah, this involves that angle either way. It's either David was doing this for some reason. There's some reason why he wrote that on there, or if it was somebody else, there's some reason why they wrote that on there too.
Yeah,
and that's why that side of their family has always been the biggest key, because we don't hear that much from them, so we just don't know.
And then why, like, if he was like the police officer in that documentary that came out, like the way he said that when he said about like a jab or something at Kamel, it's like, okay, well, first off, it's not like a surprise that she was Muslim. Like, he knew she was. It's not like she kept, practicing that faith unless she did without his knowledge. But I kind of doubt that. But because it seemed like they were constantly always together, and so, like, why would he do that? To her, that really, that's like something just out there, because
I agree that
he said, I think. He said, I think, or we think. He didn't say, I know. He said, I think, or we think. That means he's not sure.
Yep. Yeah, he was very careful.
Yeah, that message. I just don't see David writing that message. I don't.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if anybody's noticed in any of the videos or pictures or anything, and this is going to sound like an odd question, but did Kamel have freakishly long arms?
I don't think so.
She didn't look like she did.
No.
Because you know how some people are a little disproportionate in the...
Yeah.
Because, like, if I cross my arms over myself, my hands don't stick out. Like, no matter how I do it, my fingers...
How tall was she?
I was wondering about
Anybody know how tall she was?
She wasn't that tall. And...
I think she was like 5...
She was short.
Did they say 5, like 5'4" or something?
I have the same couch. If I stand on it, I think I'm 5'3". I would never be able to reach my arm up that hard to write that. But I don't know. I don't. That whole thing that's written on the wall is the one thing that drives me to believe that it was not them. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't think it was that either. It just seemed like since apparently the hands are missing. Okay, I don't see. Wasn't she found upside down, right? The way she's laying on her, chest down, and her hands. Well, how did the dog access both hands? Like, that would have been more of a hassle for him, I'm guessing.
Well, also, like, it says hands, but to what extent?
Yeah, like a fingertip.
The whole hand?
That's like one thing, or is it the whole hand?
Yeah, because like I could see like maybe the fingertips sticking out, and somebody saying, "Oh, her hand's missing," but it's not really her hand's missing; it's
fingers.
No,
the fingers.
No, they said both hands. It's very clear.
See, like everything is kind of
so
like
weird.
What makes it weird for me And I've even talked this over with my husband. My kids think I'm nuts because you know how it goes. Like we're all talking about it, and I'm sure some of your family's like, "Why are you going on about it?" But like,
oh yeah, they torture me.
Yeah, even my husband dreamt about the Crawleys one night because I talked about him so much. He said, but he agreed with me too, and he's just he never, is like a conspiracy person, but. He said, why is it focused on Al-Kamel? Like, why did she get shot twice? Why is the writing on the wall directed at her family's or, their religion? And both her hands are gone. That's, why is it? I mean, it could be a coincidence, but it doesn't look like a coincidence to me at all.
No, she was 5'4" and she was 130 pounds. Now that's probably not how she was found though. If I look at how they found her, the weight, I'm sure that weight is a lot lower.
And that's another thing I'm glad you brought up is I've seen a lot of questions about the rate of decomposition and why they're in different stages of decomposition. And I don't remember if we touched on this on the last call. Is the amount of flesh on any given body. The larger it is, the more fluidity it is, the longer it will take to get to X.
And she was, she was a little bit, not heavier, but thicker than obviously David was, but his was more muscle. So, I mean, his rate is going to be, of course, the little girl is going to be faster.
A thin finger is going to dry out faster than a thicker finger.
Yeah, that's why I think hers took longer because of her body.
And I had commented on that. Somebody was like, she's not fat. I'm like, I'm not saying she's fat. I'm saying she's fleshier.
Yeah, she is, and you can see it on that video of the birthday. Because she looked like she had gained a little bit of weight.
Yeah, I would like to know, one question. The last people to actually see them alive was the teacher of the school. And just
that's
to,
what I was wondering about.
Pick her brain and see what kind of attitude.
Well, no, that would be the person at possibly the person at the hamburger joint.
Oh yeah,
but the teacher is definitely you're definitely right there, and that's someone who sees them.
Why did they say it was
on a constant basis? Well,
and I would like to know if Rainey ever came to school telling the kind of stories that they had her telling in the documentary. You know what I mean? Because she seems to be a very intellectual kid. I mean, based on what they showed of her. I wonder if she went to school and said, "Oh yeah, monsters ate my brother last night." You know what I mean? The way she was talking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If my grandson now is that same age. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, if Ronnie ever went to school and said that anything happened, teachers are required by law to report to Child Protective Services.
Yeah, they are.
Okay,
but
what about this?
I feel like they made her look like a little bit of a. They even made the kid look like she was a little lunatic in the documentary. That got me upset. Kids have an imagination, Yeah, they could have watched Monsters Inc. You know what I mean? And they made it look like she was a crazy kid. That just bothers me so much.
And then what bothered me it bothered me about that guy, what was his name, the newsman, the way he said that about, about the little girl being 5 years old, for Christ's sake. I mean, everyone raises their kids differently, and I don't know, my kids, they weren't able to watch just really whatever they wanted, but we weren't like those kind of parents where you shield them completely because they're going to see stuff elsewhere also. But the thing is kids have an imagination. They tell stories. My grandson,
every kid talks about the boogeyman
all the time. Yeah.
Every kid talks about the boogeyman, the guy under the bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every kid does it.
Is Tom Lydon a father? Do we know?
Oh, I have no
Tom
idea.
Lydon have kids?
No.
Really? Maybe.
Well, I mean that goes to show that but it's just like he was kind of judgmental the way he said that is what it sounded to me, and he when he said about when Kamel had I think it was the rapture part, because I only saw that once, the documentary, and when he said that people focus on paranormal, like if they have problems or whatever. Okay, no, that's not true, because I'm a very firm believer on paranormal things because of things that have happened to me and my family.
I'll ask Greg, is that a conversation for another chat? Because I know you had an opinion on that.
I think we're all just chatting here, so let's keep going. Yeah.
Well, I'm just, thinking like, he just seemed like I know he's an investigative, wasn't he an investigative journalist or news anchor? And
I guess.
But I mean, still at that, it's like, it just didn't seem like I thought maybe he'd try and like.
I just think Kamel was like an eccentric person.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly, and even her friend, the way the friends, like, everybody goes through marriages that, you go through your ups and downs, your ins, your outs, your that. Maybe, like, they were feeling betrayed because, if you remember, they couldn't get David couldn't go his way with the mics because he couldn't get sign off from, give me his name, I can't remember it, to sign off his rights. Right. And, and then she started getting these so-called paranormal things. Maybe they felt like maybe David felt like somebody was messing with her.
Yeah, because
and he wanted to protect her.
Yeah. See,
right.
That was one of my thoughts too, where maybe, maybe, how they distance themselves from the rest of the family. Like, you kind of feel safe at your own home. Like, even if you are being threatened, you're not going to try and, like, go on the run with your family. I don't think so anyways. I discussed this with my husband, and he says, well, you're going to feel safe at his home because that's all your gun. He had all his guns there and whatever. And if he did get any kind of threat, or if they, something, like you say with Kamel, like, you're going to kind of isolate yourself, and that way maybe you want to be kind of sort of protective of your extended family, maybe, and maybe that's why they were keeping to themselves, because Kamel was still going to work, and they made it seem like, and to me anyways, they made it seem like in the documentary that David had kind of like just isolated them to the house and wasn't letting them speak to anybody, which, yes, if that happened with the sister, well, we don't know that whatever the situation was there, but I tell you one thing, if my brother-in-laws, any of them, told me I couldn't talk to my sister, that would not be good for him,
Especially if I drove 17 miles. I wouldn't turn around and go back.
Oh, exactly, no. I'd have been like, yeah, that's not happening. But she could have at least tried to even contact her at work, because she was going to work. Isn't that what the friend said?
Or in the back door and out the back door.
Yeah, so why didn't she try to contact her at work if she really wanted to get a hold of her?
Do you guys know anything
I believe
about
Kamel quit her job and she was working from home.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going based on what the friend said, but I didn't know the timeline on that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
what about, do you guys know anything about mushrooms? Something about mushrooms? Did you guys read that?
None of that showed up in the toxicology report?
Nothing showed up.
Right. I know, but so where did they get that information?
Well, that's not to say that they didn't do them before.
No, I know that, but where did they get that information from? Like, that's
Yeah.
just hearsay, really.
A lot of people will they'll like
Probably
take
social
drugs that
media.
way.
Probably got.
They're
Don't
bragging
do
to
it.
somebody, dude, I tried some shrooms last weekend. Oh my God.
Well, I think initially Sean Wright was the one that mentioned, oh, they were doing mushrooms.
Well, see, like some people, I know, like some like musicians that are friends of mine, and they, I know, like in the early '90s, they used to take stuff like that or hits of acid or whatever for their
I did it
songwriting.
times in the 90s.
For their songwriting,
But,
you know, I mean, I'm also like thinking. I mean, I did shrooms in high school and acid and everything, and I didn't exactly want to kill anybody. I think I was too messed up to even think of doing something like that. Like, but I know that like that drink they were talking about, that stuff. I don't know. Has anybody had that before? Because I did once.
I did hear that it makes you go crazy.
Oh, it's weird.
Like you see things and kind of like an acid trip.
I mean, I barely like had like a little drink of it that a friend of mine had at his party, and this was like several years back, and it like, and I hadn't had nothing else to drink, that was it, and like I even passed out from it. Like it made you seem like you were like, you would see like four of a certain
like
person.
out of body.
Yeah, like almost like out of body experience, and it was way worse than being on
I
shrooms.
agree. Oh yeah,
So,
I definitely could agree. Or mescaline or acid. I mean, I'm 43 years old, so I tried everything when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
But
and I'm a couple years
I
older
mostly-
than you, and so we kind of, once you've already dabbled, and you really, you know, like, you know what that feeling is like. You don't forget it, and the thing is
But anything like that always made me loving, or anybody I was around always loved.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Nothing ever made vicious.
Yeah, but
Nothing ever.
and I'm thinking that when he wrote that on his Facebook pages and whatever he was supposedly doing, he might have been doing that to, you know, add more stuff to his movie. You know, sometimes stuff gets exaggerated.
Taking himself to another place.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I could see that. Mm-hmm. I had another question, but I forgot what it was. It's an important one. Oh, I don't believe this story, but remember we were talking earlier, like if there was something about like if you could get a lawyer or somebody else, like as you know, could we bring up charges or make them reinstate the case? I don't believe this, so please do not judge me on it, because I don't believe it for one. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Sandy Hook conspiracy theory, and that guy, Wolfgang Halbach, that took them actually to court to question the whole, you know, as it was a FEMA drill and all that. He actually had a court case with them. I believe all he was a lawyer. So how was he able to state the case and reopen it on such a horrific tragedy? And like I would think that we could do, like, not we, but if we, like, are we able to do that? Or does it have to be a lawyer?
Reasonable evidence.
Anybody familiar with that guy?
No.
I've seen a little bit of it, but I'm not really.
Dan is.
Yeah.
Dan is.
Yeah,
Dan.
I've called Wolfgang a couple of times and spoke on the phone with him on the Sandy Hook. I know him reasonably well.
I mean, let me tell you something. Like, he puts on that was another case that I was so drawn to, just because the things that he pointed out. That was, I mean, it was. I don't know. I don't know what to believe on that either. So I don't even bring it up with people. But I'm just saying, like, I just think that they should be questioned. I don't think they should be allowed to, even if David did this. My thing that I have a hard time with is how could, this is unjust that you in 2 days wrap this up as a suicide and that you don't do any, the investigative work that they did was so disgusting. And there are so many people that are sitting in jail that are innocent, and I don't think it's fair. That's what bothers me, and this is kind of the exact thing that David was going to. One of the subjects he was talking about in the Gray State, was people being arrested for crimes they didn't commit.
So did they? Sorry to interrupt, but did they determine, as soon as that went, they found the crime and were doing that? Was that when they first said it was a murder-suicide, or was it when, the way they said in the documentary, after an exhausting long year?
No, it was 2 days that they confirmed it as suicide, and then they confirmed it after the talk. Then they sealed it. It was confirmed by the 19th. Correct me if I'm wrong, Greg. And then after everything came back, that's when they closed and sealed the case as indefinitely. They ruled it as a suicide murder.
Tracy, the very first media press release from Apple Valley came out as a suspicious deaths on the, I think the 17th or 18th. And then by the 19th, just like what you said, 48 hours later, they had ruled it, not officially, but they thought they're treating it as a murder, double murder, suicide, already 48 hours later. Then, the reason it took so long is for the BCA, the evidence, the case was completed the following January 11th of 2016. That was actually closed, but they had all they needed already in the first 2 days. In a month or two, they had, they already met with the family in March and, mentioned everything to them, and then they just kind of tied everything off and released it January of the next year, and that's when they slipped the information about the whole Muslim angle to Tom Lydon on Fox 9 News, and that's how that all story broke.
Mm. And see, a lot of this would have all been avoided had they done the handwriting analysis on the wall and on the notepad.
See, that's what I'm wondering.
I think people seem to forget that the notepad could travel. Some of the things I see on Facebook, I'm like, the notepad, it doesn't need legs to get up and go into the next room. A person could actually pick it up and bring it in there. You know what I mean?
Because they didn't
just because it's filmed there doesn't mean it was there.
The only place that I'm sure we all saw where they enhanced the fingerprint on the laptop and on the floor of the feet for the foot that was there, the footprint. Where is the rest of the luminol? And that was kind of my first when I first saw the case file and the pictures and everything. Where is any kind of dusting, any kind of because that's where my professionalism was at. I didn't see none of that. That's the first crime scene I see that doesn't
I would think that the lack of dusting would be.
It's going to stay there till it's wiped off.
Well, not just that. Is the insane amount of prints that would be there. There would be no way to tell who or when David touched the doorknob or when David touched the computer, because those are things that he's going to touch every single day.
Yeah. No, but I mean, they didn't even do it to find any other prints that maybe that wouldn't be there, to exclude. Obviously you wouldn't exclude the family, and friends maybe. Or,
the back door.
Not do that. Well, I'm thinking
door.
Yeah, the back door for one, and also if he supposedly went and wrote that on the pad, like you say, if let's just say the pad was there, and he wrote that after the fact, there was blood on it. His feet had blood on them, and they had to have left traces on the carpet on his way walking there. He didn't fly in there, and he only had. So what was he standing on one foot while he stood by the laptop? Because there's no other There's no other
footprints anywhere else in the house, apparently.
nothing. I didn't see anything.
I mean, I'd also like to know the distance between the edge of the carpet and where that footprint is, or the edge of the carpet and the edge of the island.
It didn't even look that far, but wouldn't you wouldn't there be at least maybe the front part of your foot hanging off the carpet, or it's not that close, but it's not to where he had one foot on the carpet and one on the wooden floor.
Greg, are you still there?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I'm still here.
Two questions.
Mm-hmm.
Two questions I have. Did you ever get a chance to look at that Gray Hughes channel I told you about on YouTube?
No.
He does.
No,
you
I
have to
haven't
look, because he recreates the scene he did to Jodi Arias digitally on how she did it, and it shows you he kind of made it like not a cartoon, but he's really good.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
Greg,
also,
Greg Hughes.
His name is Greg.
I've seen some of his stuff.
Yeah, he did really good work.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay.
And then also, what did Judy ever say? And I could be really wrong here, I don't know, because, I read things. I don't know if that's fact or fiction comments.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that she seen bones scattered all over the place when she looked at.
Well, she also said she saw nail beds.
She saw nails. I don't know how in the world that happened.
And I just read the article today to make sure I read it. And they said, in the first initial reports, this is a newspaper article I'm reading now, so forgive me. News could be BS. But it said that she was looking through the window, and the neighbor said that she seen, bodies, and there was bones and skeletons all over. So how did she retract that statement? Or is that actually true? Because we're asking where all the bones are, and that could be one of the images that they didn't release or want us to have, which I can't. I can respect that as a mom. As a dad, I don't want everybody looking at my granddaughter's bones or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But
sure.
She retracted that statement when she spoke with you, correct?
I don't think she retracted it. I think the statement just kind of changed, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. She lied so much, I don't know.
Yeah. No, she was saying one thing.
I shouldn't say lies. She changed her story. Maybe she's just, senile. I'm not even being facetious.
Well,
I just think she's a mayor.
Mm-hmm. You think she's what?
Like a nosy neighbor mayor, because she went from not knowing them at all to, best friends.
Yeah, she did.
You know what I mean?
Well, she didn't. She didn't know them. They only lived there for 1 year.
I lived here
my
place 5 years, and I don't know none of my neighbors.
Right.
She said other than hi, goodbye. Yeah, other than hi, goodbye, that was it.
I really think that people from the Gray State quote-unquote team were coaching her, were actually helping her, were encouraging her, and were probably using her for whatever their real purpose was. That's what I think.
Well, I don't even think so. So in her mind, they weren't. They were just giving the information, to her that she would bring it back to us in that way.
Right.
Telling, feeding her the gossip, per se,
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Does anyone know what?
I lost my train of thought. Hold on.
Sorry.
That happens. I'm sorry.
No, I don't know anything. Apparently, I know nothing.
If you go by what Rob says,
you definitely have to look into his work, though, because I'm telling you, he really is phenomenal. He may not want to touch this case with Kevin Polo, but I don't know. I would definitely reach out to him.
Yeah, please. It's definitely worth a shot.
He loves investigating. He likes, what he does is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this case, the Kaninka Jenkins girl with the hotel and the freezer.
Yes.
in Chicago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, he debunked everybody, all those people that were saying, "Oh, she got pulled, she got this." He pretty much kept debunking their theories, and he was smart. I mean, because what they were putting on YouTube was just ridiculous about that girl. It was terrible. But
see, that's one thing that I have to step back from sometimes, and somebody got the best of me last night a little bit. Is I'm a smart ass, but I deal in facts.
Right.
And I'm not here to say whether David did it or not. I'm not saying he didn't do it, but prove it to me.
Yeah.
Well, that's my point. I don't even care who did it at this point. I want to know why you dismiss so much of what proper protocol is. My father was NYPD top line detective. He was detective of the year in all 5 boroughs. He's a very decorative officer. And it just seems like in these little towns like John Bonet, and like I spoke about, like these men don't take their jobs. And maybe it's just a New York thing, I don't know, but, you know, we don't solve crimes like SVU in an hour. It don't happen.
Yeah.
Like, they feel up, especially with a child, that I just feel like, you know, they discredited her, I feel like, you know what I mean?
What?
Like, make sure, rule our parents out. I'm sorry, rule them out. And if they could so-called do that, then you would think they would want to shut up all these people.
Why? That's what I was wondering about. That. Why did they open the crime scene like the very next day, wasn't it? And that's when those who went in there and found like the other bullet on the ceiling. Was it the next day or a couple days after?
That was on the 19th. That was 2 days later.
Yeah, see, that kind of blows my mind because, like, I know, like, I mean...
You don't want to believe that the police are that incompetent.
You don't, because usually, like, people get assigned different jobs, like, quote, jobs, different locations and... just to do different things. That's like one of the initial things before anything else. And for someone, and that's like scouting, you know. And so, how in the world? Because they look everywhere: ceilings, walls, under things. I don't know how in the world that could have gotten missed at all. I don't care.
They were also they were there. You have to remember they were called back to the house on January 19th too. So they were in the house on the same day, but apparently the Gray State team can look up and see a bullet hole, but the police can't. So the police were there January 17th, didn't see a bullet hole. They were there January 19th, didn't see a bullet hole. They get called to the house and told that there is a bullet hole, and then they go and they see that there's a ladder, you know, and just then they take photos too. So we
why were
do
they
need
why
photos.
were they in the attic in the first place?
Exactly. Yeah. It seems like somebody was looking for something.
Right, but they were looking for it on the 19th. Why was the ladder still there 1 month later?
Well, actually,
but why were they
exercise equipment?
Yeah, we've never
I
seen
thought
any.
I thought it was insurance papers or something. And another question is, I don't know if anybody can answer this. Clearly, she was the sole provider for that family. Now,
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But who got
David
the money in the end? Did her family? Did her family get anything?
What's that?
Did her family get anything, or did it all go to his?
It was all him. He had a lot of money. I don't know about what she had and all that.
So why were they saying, Greg? Why were they saying that she was suffering these financial hardships if he had money?
I think it was speculation.
I don't know. I mean, he was, okay, maybe he didn't have money. Let's just say he was the fourth person on a Wells Fargo account that had a lot of money coming in. We're talking six-figure digits, right? Money coming in, and there's money going out. So maybe, I don't know. That, to me, was like, I don't understand that.
What I thought was strange about that, too, Greg, was that, okay, like, obviously we see on those canceled checks his name and with their old address and everything. And why is there no, I didn't see anything with Kamel's name as far as, was there any, like, canceled checks under her name? Or did they have separate accounts? Were they joint?
Well, that leads into my next question.
I know
Dan has been posting the little snippets. Is there a singular file of the bank records, or is that not available?
There is a Wells Fargo file.
I haven't seen that one.
I don't know if
I didn't see.
Go ahead, Dan.
I'm still here, Greg. The file came through like a 270-page file PDF in terms of Wells Fargo with all these accounts, and I was pulling through the pertinent information.
Okay.
It's all in one huge one. And here's what I've found is that Kamel had a solo, her own account. David has his own account. The two had a joint account, and then he had a Hothead Production account, and then he was listed on a POD bank account from his father, like a trust fund kind of a deal. And then he also had his own account like that, which is a POD that was in his name. So a lot of bank accounts, but what I saw on the trend of the historical trend for the month leading up to the death is Kamel was paying the mortgage on the house on the, I think it was the 15th and the 30th of every month coming out of her bank account, and then you would see the following month, like the next day later, a full amount from David being transferred into her account that he was reimbursing her essentially. So he had cash. She had her own checking account with different, they showed canceled checks from her KC Cakes company. The nutritional stuff she was working on that she was writing checks for and paying things, and then also people paying her for the services she was providing right up until October, November timeframe of 2014. So she was still actively involved with her personal business, although she quit her official job. She was still self-employed, and so was David. So David was making money. There was one large check for some editing work he did for a company that made $9,000, and you see that check come in from a company signed to Hothead Productions, and then you see it endorsed and deposited into Hothead Productions' bank account for some editing work he did for a film or a movie or something. That was $9,000. But you see all these transfers coming in. You see checks coming in. Other than that, they were very, I think, a prudent family making normal types of purchases. But David certainly was not hurting for cash, and neither was she, and they were also not broke and not living wealthy either. They were.
And there's always those times. I don't know anybody's financial situation, but I know me personally. There's always those times where it's a little lean, and you stress over money, and you may complain about it to your friends.
Yeah, and that's what I saw. Like the month.
Everybody's count to being broke is different.
There was a.
You know what I mean?
Two straight days where there was 2 transfers being, checks cleared that went under. Then it had overdraft protection on David's account, and then he paid it along with the fee, and then it got back up to normal again. But there were some blips in the radar, but nothing like that. Now the movie makes it sound, and also these journals make it sound like Kamel was solely supporting David, and I think that is where we get into our disinformation and our misinformation, because David's checks were clearly rolling in, and he also got green light on this, green lit, to move forward on the movie plan. So
that's another reason.
That's very misleading. I think they had some lean times early on in their marriage, perhaps, that it was difficult. But the way the movie and these journals provided, it makes it sound like it was leading up to this double murder-suicide that led them to all this, because they had such a rocky marriage. That's very taken out of context, is all I'm going to say there. That's Eric Nelson putting it together to make it look that way.
I mean, there's obviously some sort of money available, and I don't care what kind of relationship I have with my parents. Like, if times are that lean and like you're having that hard of a problem, you go and say, hey, can I borrow $300? I need to go get groceries or pay the power bill or whatever.
Exactly. But I don't, and he was at his dream, like even just to go and get, whether he was going to deal with them or not, if he had interest from those two mics, like he was reaching his, let's say, his goal was to get this movie out there. I don't see a reason why. I mean, if they were in bad times, they were about to get out of it really soon.
Yeah, like he did all that work for nothing.
You know, and
I'm personally not going to work my ass off and then be like, oh, screw it.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah. And where did they get the pack theory from? Who came up with that, and who provided that information?
I think the movie documentary, I think that made them look bad, like in every way. That's why I couldn't figure out why the dad
I think the pack
brother
came from the Gray State guys.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, and another question going back to the
David made
thing.
the dog look like a demon in the movie, in the documentary.
Yeah, I did.
The $14,000 check, I saw where somebody said that it was for tax purposes. Is that like, are they laundering money?
No, that was just if you gift someone, you can gift money to someone, a family member or something, not to exceed $14,000 in a calendar year, and you're able to use that as a gift without being taxed on it. So Dan Sr., who was well adept and must have had a financial advisor or tax advisor or something, and so at the end of the year, it looked like, and perhaps every year he did this to the kids or just to David for sure, is write a check as a gift for $14,000, and he was able to write that off. So that's not a money laundering. That's not a tax evasion thing. It's more of a tax avoidance kind of a thing that he did legally.
Because, I mean, just because I write you a check doesn't mean you don't hand me the cash back.
Correct. Now, and that is correct. But if you, yep, that's correct. Who's to say?
And has anyone, Dan, have you tried to get in touch with the friends, the women, the lady she worked with, Kamal worked with, and her friend Susan, I think was the other name?
No, I haven't contacted any one of those yet, or to date.
Well, another thing,
Sarah?
Are tax returns, federal tax returns, are those open records for like a FOIA request, or are those personal records that you can't have access to?
Good question. That would be a FOIA request to the IRS, perhaps.
It'd be the IRS, I think.
And now they just sold the house, so does that money go to David's family or both, or?
It probably paid off the mortgage.
They bought the family that bought the house bought it from that neighborhood rehabilitation company who owned the home. So this transaction had nothing to do with the Crowleys. Crowleys went into foreclosure, I think, at Wells Fargo, or so that was a year later. The recent purchase now was already when a company bought it to do the remodeling. So they had already owned it.
Oh.
I wonder if Judy bought the neighbor's muffins yet.
Now here's a comment I just ran across now, and I just want to read this in the back of the police report. We called this the 94-page police report from the Apple Valley, which we all scoured for months and months and months, and now we haven't gone back and looked at it. But it also has some interesting nuggets, because with all these other reports available, if you go back and cross-reference this kind of stuff, I'm going under the impression that David was not on good terms with his brother Dan Jr. and was on okay terms with his sister Allison, but we don't really get a feeling of how good a relationship he had with his own father, Dan Sr. Now, we know he got the money, but we know that was also a tax. The incentive was for taxes, that $14,000. Now, if we go to the text when Dan Sr. creates a timeline for police, he goes through all the text message correspondence, and in November, it was, let's see, he asks him November 8th, he got the new phone number, how busy are you, or how's the negotiations going with the producers? On November 9th, David writes back, I walked from it, reasons of the spirit, I guess. So that's where we get first information that this whole deal was canceled. But this could have been David Crowley knowing potentially that his father was either in on it or connecting closely with the Gray State team and leaked out this message back by just saying, I walked away from it, when it indeed was not true. We know that it was a fact that he never walked away from this deal. So why did he tell his dad this story? Because his dad was possibly interested in making some money too? You know, who knows? But that was a text.
I don't think he trusted his dad because he felt his dad and his brother were in cahoots.
And David was probably figuring all this out, and he started being coy with everyone, slowly pulling himself away from these snakes, some of which were his own family.
That's exactly what I thought. They were like vultures. That's how I felt.
Wow, that puts a whole new spin. Puts a whole new spin that we know that interview I did with the president of Michael Entertainment Group said that the deal was never off. But yet here's David responding personally to his father that I walked away from it. Reasons of the spirit, I guess.
If Senior's talking to Junior and Junior's talking to Mason and David's trying to get Mason to release information, you would try to covertly influence Mason that way.
Also, the police could get, his records from his to confirm those texts are even real or not. He could have just been reading those texts off to us, saying that, you know what I mean?
By the time the requests came back from the cell phone companies, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they only keep the actual text, like the parts of the text, the actual message, is only kept for 60 or 90 days. So by the time the police's reports and subpoenas got through to them, texts from that point in time are gone. You only have a record of to and from.
And see, that would make sense too, because if David was having issues with his father, he never did give him his phone number. Dan Jr. gave Dan Sr. the phone number of David after he got his new phone. So that could be the case. David was pulling himself away from his own father is what it looks like, because Thanksgiving comes around. They get invited to go to Thanksgiving. David replied, no thanks, we'll stay home this year. And then Christmas, no thanks.
And there's another thing in there that I call BS on, is Ronnie doesn't seem interested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody asks their 4 or 5-year-old if, do you want to go to Grandpa's for Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
And don't forget, Dan Sr. did not speak to his own father. I want to know what the reason is behind that.
Correct. There was a 5-year period that was true. 5 years. I don't know when, but there was a big gap that something happened there that they were on.
Isn't that in David's journal?
Yes. Well,
State journal.
David has 5 journals.
So-called journal. I don't know how the police said they didn't find that journal. The father found it after. I don't believe that they didn't have access to that GoPro. I mean, what kind of morons work at that Apple Valley Police Department?
That's what I said, with all that data there. Hmm.
Well, it's like I live in Podunk, Alabama, and I'm almost positive these guys do a better job.
My 6-year-old nephew could break code for a GoPro and get in it. I mean, it's not rocket science. So let's face it. That's what I mean, and this is where I say, like, am I being ignorant? Because there is a lot of crime in New York, and these officers are very well trained, and there's not a lot of crime in these small town stuff. They're not used to handling things like that. When
again, that's like where I fault the Apple Valley Police Department in being over their heads.
You halt it, and you say we need to get the right person in here yes, right, the FBI, whatever, to investigate this case. You know, he wasn't just a nobody like I am. If somebody walks into my house,
But
he was. You know,
they even do that sort of thing here where I live, and like they will call in state police and local sheriff. But I live where it's very rare. Because I mean, if a murder happens, I know it hasn't happened here in the whole 11 years I've lived here, but go a couple hours south to Albuquerque, and it's terrible there. So that's you know, I don't believe that they didn't call anyone else. Like if they did it, they did that for reasons that it's not that they knew they could, or they thought they could take the case on it themselves, but I think that they did it purposely, not to call any higher ups, only because there was no motive, no proof of nothing that would.
Well, I think that would have been Dan Senior and the brother to push that issue and not accept it.
Yeah.
And being that they were so lenient as to not accept it, that just leads me to believe that there was something shady going on. Because even if I have a son and a daughter, and even if there was all this videos that you show me and stuff like that, I know my son. I've seen him be angry. He plays football. He snaps out. He goes crazy.
Yeah.
You know, he's a good kid. But I still would. You need to prove to me without a reasonable doubt that my son killed my 5-year-old granddaughter. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Especially before you're gonna go make a movie about it.
In that movie, I don't know, but I hate to say it, but the father seemed very nonchalant, like, oh, whatever.
Like heartless.
Like, even like it was weird. Like, it wasn't even, he didn't even have no emotion at all. Even at the end, when he said that, what in the world did he say? But it was like heartless. Like,
yeah, that's David.
I was like, oh my God.
Really puts the mother's death in a new perspective with Kate.
I think
Absolutely.
Kate was probably with David.
That's strange.
She's going kind of frantic. She's going kind of frantic looking for him when he changed his number, and at least that's what I read in the email between Kamel and his sister. Her mom it just seems like their mom was more or closer
But
to
it
David.
did seem like she's an alcoholic.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, was she like the kind of alcoholic that was like, you know?
Apparently goes frantic and thinks that her kids did.
No, but I mean,
Well, they
I
also
just
said
think
that David was too, though, right? He was one too.
I mean, I don't know. I'm like a really paranoid mom. My daughter used to live in Denver, and now that she moved to Albuquerque, I'm more paranoid there than when she was in Denver. Because don't ask me why. Probably because when I worked there, I knew of all the crimes that happened there. But it's just like, as a parent, like if my kids don't call, if I don't hear from them in a couple of days, actually that doesn't even happen. I need to hear from my daughter and my kids once a day. You bet that I'm going to go hunt them down if I don't hear from them. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, and like Dean Jr. saying that he was trying to avoid confrontation. He's just going to leave the stuff on the doorstep. You know, you're going to bang on the door and be like, hey, Dad told me to drop this stuff off here.
Yeah. But yet at the same time, doesn't he say, oh, I had thought of going and telling him I loved him? Why?
Yeah, that was on the 24th.
Yeah, so if they were having issues and he didn't know he was, gone or whatever, like he just like went like first they were having an argument or not getting along, and suddenly he had thought maybe he should stop by there and tell him he loved him. Like, was that just like for the documentary purpose to throw that in there, or was it
I think so.
thing?
And you know, there's
Christmas.
different ways of that family do things. Like if my mom comes out and says, "I love you," I'd be like, "What's going on?"
What's wrong with you?
I know that my friends worked the Tribeca Film Festival because they were my friend's father runs SNL, Saturday Night Live, so they do the film festivals and stuff like that. And that's how I got on to watching this, because they said they were acting like a bunch of frat boys, like from college, like, so people weren't expecting what they seen, and from what I understand, like after it was over, like they went out with their tail between their legs because people were just giving them the evil eye and like looking at them like, yeah, like, are you serious? That's how I first learned about it. And like they were all like loud and rowdy and, you know, ready to go. And then after it was like and I've been there. My father-in-law was in one years ago. Said it was called New York Says Thank You, but it's a very happy atmosphere. So they were like, you know, thinking they were on the red carpet and all that. And then after the film, lights come on, you know, and they're thinking, you know, everybody gets to take a picture with the people. Like, everybody went the other way, like, and they were just like,
standing there.
Walked away with the yeah, like, and I think that was their first real, like, oh moment. You know what I mean?
The whole documentary made the whole family, not the whole family, but made David and his family look, his wife, and they just made them look like if they were.
They made David.
So wait. So like,
they
like
they
were like
made
happy?
the whole family look bad.
Why
no,
would they be happy?
Like
What were they happy about?
Well, when you go to the film festival in New York, it's pretty much they shut down the streets, and then there's all sorts of theaters, and there's a lot of very well-known actors that run and stuff. It's a very, very big thing. Like, it's kind of like Carnival, I would say, kind of like New Orleans.
There's the potential to rub elbows with the superstars.
Yeah, and it's all bars, like streets, a fair, everything. So they would, you know, they probably were in the bar drinking all day, and then the premiere night, they get to, you know, walk the red carpet, and then after the show is filmed, they stay back, and you can go and talk to them and, you know, take pictures, whatever. Especially if you're young, you want to get your pictures out there on social media with others. And with the way they went in there, and then from what I understand from film crew, after talking about this with my friend and her father and everything, afterwards it was like you could drop a pin. Like, everybody, like, the lights turned on, it was like everybody just gave them the evil eye, like really? Like, especially the brother and the Mason guy. And
which one?
Like, they were acting like a bunch of frat boys going in, and they went out, like, and they were waiting for the, you know, the big moment where fans come over and take pictures. I guess kind of like David got the reaction he got and the support he got when he put out the trailer. They were thinking that was going to happen to them, and when it didn't, they, like, walked out with their tail between their legs.
So this was for the documentary that just came out on Netflix?
Yeah, but it first goes into the Tribeca Film Festival, and then they choose it. They choose where they want to release it. Like, oh, does Netflix want to pick it up? Does A&E want to pick it up? Or, you know, if it's not already contracted. That's where I believe it was not contracted, and that's where I believe A&E
so it's like a bid system on the...
Right, because if you...
The low level.
A&E, Mike they didn't reach out to A&E yet, but they were telling David, let's go here. You'll stand to make more money, like doing a series between merchandise, like Sons of Anarchy type show. You'll get merchandise. You'll get more seasons. You'll make more money. Like $30 million was just their budget to make the first season. That wasn't what David was.
And
David was
like
about to make
the way they in the documentary, they just like popped that gumption talk recording on the mics.
Yes, that's what I said. It was terrible.
Yeah.
When
and who even knows if that was really David? It could have been the brother. That was just an audio clip. You don't.
I mean, I think it was David, and I think he was bumping himself up. This is mine.
Yeah.
This is how it's going to be. This is what I'm going to say. This is what they're going to say back. And if it doesn't go that way, then I'm out.
Right. Mm-hmm. But do you notice, like, where they said to him, and I think that's what kind of swayed him a little bit, because when I told him, like, listen, we know you could direct a movie, but you're going to want to know a big-name director, because that's what's going to drive your audience. You need that. People don't know you. You could stand alongside of him and direct it all you want, but we need a name to go on to that. And he agreed to that, like, you know what I mean? So when they played that tape for the mic,
doesn't mean anything when you could put James Cameron's name on it.
Right.
Or Spielberg or...
Yeah, of course, but I mean, if you were David and you were so in the film industry, you would understand that. Like, if I wrote a script and Steven Spielberg said, I want it, but my name's going to go on it, you could be my assistant director, I'm going to say, yeah, because you know what? It's way more money than I got now. You know what I mean? And I'm getting my feet in the water. And that was $30 million was just for the first season. So if they had to run this thing for 6 seasons or whatever, and they had mentioned, oh, well, we could do like A&E, we can do HBO, blah, blah, blah. That's when I think A&E said, you know, they reached out to me, I never got it, let me take your documentary. That's the only reason why they got that.
And it's like, even today, the subject material is still a big thing. I mean, I just got through reading a 5-series book on post-apocalyptic situations. Oh,
I don't know. I just feel like it. You know what? And another thing is, like, if I had a Greg and a Dan, and you guys were doing this for my family, and you were calling out all the things that maybe I couldn't see because I was suffering from pain, I would not discredit in this Facebook group. I would say, wow, guys, I guess I was so blinded, I didn't see all this or question all this, and maybe I should. And, you know, I appreciate you, but, like, out of respect and love for my son that you guys are showing, you didn't even know him, maybe I should, you know? And they're taking it as we're, like, hating on him, you know what I mean? So that just shows you, you know, kind of making your own self guilty to me.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's strange. Their behavior is strange, but the whole thing is strange, you know.
And I mean, and that's where I have to come in and say that I appreciate probably 90% of the people that are in there. I'm new to the group, and a lot of people have answered my questions, and there's a handful in there that are nosy Nellies that are just in there for the gore and stories. But for the most part, it seems to be a collective group of people that want an answer, or want the answer.
I'm going to hang up, guys, but Dan or Greg, I think that you guys would be better off. I mean, this is solely up to you. Reaching out to Gray Hughes, because you have much more knowledge than I do about, because he's going to want to know the ins and outs. And I bet you he could recreate the scenario, or within a day, 2 days, like, or 3 different scenarios if you wanted them to. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
I just think
Sure.
that you guys have more, you know more about it than I do to reach out to them.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
So
I'm definitely gonna reach out to him.
definitely look into it, and I appreciate talking to you all you guys, and you definitely shed light on it for me. I really do hope something happens. I really do, 'cause I don't know. My heart's not whole. I really feel like they failed. Even if it is David, that we have a right to prove that it. Like I said from the beginning,
Yep.
if you took this case to court, there is no reason you are convincing a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that he was the one who pulled the trigger. Sorry, not in any New York justice system. Yeah, I don't even think it would
anywhere.
make past the grand jury. I served on a grand jury. You have to have a lot of evidence to take something to trial. It's not there.
Hey, Tracy, hang on for a moment here before you take off. I'm going to read a couple of these texts again from Dan Sr. Remember, for the police reports now, guys, police asked Dan Sr. to put together a timeline, and the more I read this, it looks like he's sending a narrative to police that's making, David look goofy. But also, I'm going to read about 4 lines here. I want you to take in the David's tone relating with his father. All right, so September of 2014, Dan Sr. asks, "You guys want to come down to grill?" David responds, "We're busy cleaning up after the big garage sale." Later in September, "I'm going to take Rania to the zoo." Last minute, David tries to discourage me from picking up Rania. But he picked her up anyway. After they got back, they were talking, and then it says they were busy and didn't seem like wanting me to hang around, so I left. That's the last time I saw David. Then, no correspondence in October. And then Dan Sr. writes, out of the blue, in the timeline, David posts on Facebook regarding religion of Islam, very heated. Same day he posts in all caps, "Do not fuck with the United States combat veteran." Now, why would Dan Sr. put any of that in there? We never did find out why David wrote about the United States combat veteran, but why does Dan Sr. sneak the word religion of Islam into this timeline to police? This thing is
Are you sure that's...
This is very strange, this whole behavior by the father. But
how do you know his Facebook wasn't hacked or something? You can't, that doesn't nothing.
I read through all of those Facebook posts, and not saying I didn't miss it, but I did see the combat veteran post, but I didn't see anything about Islam.
Oh, correct. Just to clarify, that post David did make, that post, "Do not fuck with the United States combat veteran," was a Facebook post and I believe a Twitter post as well, but it had no extenuating circumstances as to what caused it or what brought that on. Nowhere did I see David ever mention a heated argument regarding any religion, much less Islam.
When was the post?
That I don't think that this was in there. I think this
September.
I think this was planted. This whole background of this discussion was planted by Dan Sr. This is what he gave police. And now I'm sick
because I'm wondering.
Well, you would have to think Dan.
We got to look in September to see if there was any kind of attack, whether it was the one in New York on the Hudson River that triggered David to write that.
Yeah, there was something unrelated. Yeah, it was something unrelated, but it was certainly not about religion. David never posted about religion of any sort on his pages, especially heated discussions. That's an.
And don't forget, after his death, somebody was on his Facebook, so somebody else besides his wife knew that password. Because I know for a fact that would.
I'm sorry.
Nobody should have known that.
I don't think there was any heated discussion on Facebook at all. The comment, David did write the comment. There was no hack. But what I'm saying is...
No, I don't mean hack, but didn't I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off. Wasn't it said, though, after he passed away, there was something missing off of Facebook that somebody took down.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was Willis.
Yeah.
That is
so
true
obviously
also.
somebody has David's password.
Yes. And
yeah,
in
somebody
fact,
took that down.
it was 13 months later that I think it was Joe Segur found out on David's wall, and then he went to send him a message, and he saw that it was currently active. Someone was on his page. This was March of 2016. Someone was still on David Crowley's Facebook page, so we know that. But I'm talking about this Islam.
They don't give you access. The girl across the street from me has a 5-year-old daughter, and they found her overdosed in the bed with her daughter. And her Facebook is still like that. And the parents, they wanted it, like, control of it to see, and they would, Facebook still to this day has not gave the mother the password. Nothing, like, there's been no activity on it since the date. The very morning that she died, she wrote, "Picking up the Kaylee from school" is her last Facebook.
Yeah, and that's a whole other discussion. We could have a whole broadcast on that topic because
unless you create a memorial page, you turn that page into a memorial page, and you announce that it's Dan Crowley Sr. that's controlling it. You do not have access to that page.
Yep, yeah, you get 3 options when the person dies of how you want to set up that page, but none of them include being able to edit the existing page the way it is.
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to take off, but I just wanted to let you guys think about that. It's very strange how David was pulling away from his father in the last few months. All right,
I'm going to try to see if there was any kind of attacks or something.
You too, man.
Good night, guys.
Bye, Dan.
All right, good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Greg?
Yeah.
It's Sophia.
Hello.
I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
I had to leave for a little bit, but I'm back.
Oh, cool. Thanks for joining us.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Sure,
the only
sure.
thing I would just say to what Dan just said is, the timeline that Dan was talking about. I think both Dan Crowley Sr. and Dan Crowley Jr. helped write that. So I do think that David's brother also had a part in writing that timeline.
Yeah, because it seemed to be
that
some
is
of it was in
strange.
third person.
Right.
Yeah, and that was one of the things. It was kind of like some of it was hard to figure out who was saying what, but every time that he was saying I, that was Dan Sr. That's what I think. And every time that he would talk about a Daniel, he was talking about Dan Jr. So that was the only way that I was able to kind of figure out, okay, who was saying what, who was actually talking. And that sounds like something that I don't know. That sounds like something more. There's no reason to put that in. So, anyways.
Right.
You know
is anybody
my thoughts
else?
on that. Yeah. Well, you know what my feelings are in regards to him, but I'm not gonna. I mean, this is going on probably YouTube, so.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it clean and nice and, stay on topic as much as we can, right?
Yeah, and I'm not going to put my actual opinion of who I think did what out there because, we all know anyway. But,
Naming names can make you
very, very odd. Mm-hmm. They like to sue. But, it's just odd. It's so odd that they are very, very adamant about how things are. If you have proof, show us the proof. If you don't, then let us form our opinions. Because obviously the police reports that we have right now are not answering the questions. And with that DNA, with the DNA test, with the last photo that we just were seeing, I don't even know how they formed a murder-suicide thing without an actual note saying, I'm David Crowley. I murdered my wife and daughter, and this is the reason why. And now I'm going to commit suicide because I can't live with what I did. If we actually have that information or on video, the actual reason, then that would solve it for me, and I would be happy to go away. But we don't have that. And the information that we have right now is just not solving it. It's just not answering those questions. And so, well,
and so
this is
wouldn't
why we're
you
all
think,
here.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, wouldn't you think that if somebody, let's say somebody did, force David to actually write that, wouldn't they force him to sign it to make it seem, say, oh yes, this is David Crowley? That was another thing that I found strange too. That there was you have three notes, right? They're saying he wrote 3 different things in 3 different rooms and didn't sign any of them. Didn't give any indication of who actually wrote it, and the only time that they could have proven it, they don't do handwriting tests. They don't even want to prove it. They've already got their mind set. It's all done. There's something really wrong with that.
And I really think that they could have done better testing. They could have done GSR. They could have done the trajectories for the bullets and, shown actual pictures of it if they even bothered. They could have done so much more. But they went in there with the mindset.
Supposedly when they went back in, when they were told that the bullet hole was in the ceiling, there was a string supposedly from the ceiling to the floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't even see how that bullet could have been the kill shot for David.
Me neither, because
it's the position that he was found in.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
If you think that he killed himself, if you go with the suicide narrative, if he had been turned and looking out the front window, right hand to right temple, it goes through up into the ceiling. He falls, bounces off the recliner, and is laid out, and the gun has bounced over to wherever. Theoretically.
And he's laid out, arms like that?
He's not pointing in the right direction then.
Yes, that's hard to believe. His
and
arms
then the gun
lay out.
found on the left side?
Because he would have to be
I could see the dog doing a lot of stuff.
To the couch, facing the wall where the writing is, and himself be thrown backwards to land how he landed.
Well, that's what I was saying. If he was looking out the front window.
Yeah, see, that wouldn't match up to how he was found, because you can't determine how your body lays. Once it.
I don't know. That's what I said. Theoretically.
You know what I mean? That means you know what I mean.
Yeah, and that's I think that's why it's so important to actually know where that gun actually landed, because I don't think that the dog could move that gun. Maybe the dog could, but I don't know.
He's not gonna pick it up and tote it around.
He's not gonna move it far. If he's moving, he's gonna move it because he's trying to get to some other thing or something. But I just don't see the dog moving that gun, and so it's weird that the photo that we did get is not the way that they found those bodies, simply because it doesn't have the gun in it, and we really don't know what else it doesn't have. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But then that goes back to Kamel's blood being on the gun safe. I mean, why would it be on the gun safe if he already had the gun?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Yeah,
and that's where, that theory
what
that I
page
came
that
up
was
with.
on? Do we know what page that was on? What document?
It's in the individual DNA report.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if that's been posted, but I'd really like for that to be posted. That's a huge deal that I haven't really been able to catch up on. Kamel's blood found on the gun safe, on David's gun safe. That's a huge deal.
Also,
yeah, we need to see what's going on with that.
I did read that.
But sometimes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Sometimes, I don't know, I just feel like there's photos missing.
Absolutely.
Not just from, you know, the ones obviously that maybe they don't want to, you know, to show, you know, more of the different, but as far as like the gun, like there had to have been a picture that they took, you know, because that's like the first ones of, you know, the gun next to the body, even if they didn't take a picture of the body, but pretty similar. But the only one that they gave was the picture of when they've already, you know, discharged the weapon. Not discharged, they secured it. And so that's why I say there has to be more photos missing as far as even just some of the evidence, because it just seems like they just picked one of this and one of that, and they didn't.
Well, I think they were trying to give us as little
possibly
as possible.
There's like hundreds to thousands of photos that are missing, and you can tell that by when you look at the actual number on those photos in that Dropbox. You know, you can really tell by that. There's like, because I think one of the BCAs is like 4,445. So that means, you know,
wow.
I mean, I'm guessing that means that there's at least over 4,000 photos that the BCA took, and they weren't the first people on scene. Yeah. They weren't the first people to take pictures. So, you know, that to me is also another.
Taking the picture of the gun, how it was found before they secured it, or it was never where it was said to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm making a request.
They didn't even.
I'm in the middle of making a request right now to Apple Valley right now, and part of that request is where the gun was originally found, a picture.
Right.
And I'm not requesting like a picture of the bodies or anything like that. I don't need that. I just want to have a picture of how the gun was originally found before it was secured and pictured in the other picture that we've seen. And that's really what I want.
Add on to that, like on that particular phrase, so that you can identify the proximity and directionality of the gun to David's body.
Okay.
Because if they just send you a very close-up of the gun, and it's on the hardwood floor, I mean, the hardwood floor runs east to west or whatever.
It's not going to be on the hardwood floor. It's going to be on the carpet.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, we should know where it's there. And they tell us where they think it really is. So even based on that carpet, the way that carpet has those little swirly things, I mean...
Yeah, but I'm saying if it's in the middle of the gray area and all you get is the gray area...
Right.
I mean, if we get a picture of it on the hardwood floor, we know for certain he didn't kill himself.
Can't they just
that bit of over there on the other side of the carpet? I mean, I'm not saying it was over there.
Yeah, I'm going to write that down in my notes, though, to make sure that I clarify.
Yeah, because
I think the question was asked earlier, but has there been any more conversation or input from Allison?
No, not that I know.
Because, I mean, like, everybody else is talking or has talked or said something, and I haven't seen anything of her, even from her saying, screw all of y'all.
Right. And that's, you know, I mean, that's a really good point, because we didn't really want to reach out to any of them for that reason, because they were still grieving and all this. But then they start, you know, some of them start going on tours and doing this whole media thing, and it's like what are you guys doing? But she never did. She was never part of any of that. And
I totally respect it if she's like, you know, I don't want any part of it. I totally respect that decision.
Right. And I can only guess what she might think if we actually do try to contact her, try to reach out to her. You know, you just don't know how she's going to take it. She could be cool. You know,
or it could be
really
volatile.
Yeah, because she's gone through, you know, this. And
I mean, there's been little parts of me that are like, well, I'm just going to message so-and-so. And I'm like,
Yeah, I don't know if they want to be messaged, you know, and sometimes it seems like they do. Other times, you know, it's like the only ones that really do are the ones that are kind of pissed off. But that's not always true, because there have been other people that have been kind and nice that have kind of reached out.
I just thought of something else. I was looking at, I think it was last night, I was looking at one of the PDF files of a conversation that Joe, maybe, had with Sidra. And there's that whole section where she says she didn't write that.
Oh. She didn't write what?
It was like messages back and forth from Sidra to, I believe his name was Joe.
I do remember that. Yeah, there was somebody who had either hacked her or was posing as her, because she had came back and said, "No, I didn't write that. I didn't say this."
But it's all in the same message, so you have to ask: did she really get hacked, or did she get in trouble for saying too much?
Yeah. I guess we'll find out. Anything else here before we wrap this up? Anybody got any final thoughts, final words?
No.
I think
I missed a big part, but I can catch up with Laura after we hang up.
Okay. Well, anything, you know, if you want to add anything right now, we can.
Oh, no more 5-hour videos.
Well, I like to do this again too. I think this one went very, very well. So
I'm pleased with as many people as we had, that it went as well as it did organizationally.
Right.
That's fine. I don't mind coming back again and talking. Hopefully I can have my thoughts gathered a little bit better.
Awesome. Yeah, and then maybe we'll kind of work out maybe some type of a structure, have it, you know, where, I don't even know, I've even thought about maybe scheduling. Yeah, well, or just kind of like saying, okay, everybody kind of sign up and, well, you know, you get so many minutes and time, and then it's like, I don't know. It's just, that's not really what this should be. It really should just be us kind of talking about this stuff. But
and like, I love it.
I was looking forward to this from the beginning, and then tonight, all my thoughts kind of went haywire, because I was trying to get my son's, birthday party going, and I kind of lost my train of thought, and it was not a good day.
No. Well, I'm sorry about that. I know I had a bunch of notes here, and then sometimes you just kind of go with it. I just try to have all of my documents ready. So if we need to research anything, we can get those documents out. But all right, sounds great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
We'll do this again soon.
You all have a wonderful night.
You too.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.